Hey everybody, Éric Grenier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this live stream of the BC election results. Please, if you're in the comments, let us know. We always ask right up front if we sound okay and if we look okay and everything is coming in great. And Philippe, you look terrific. How are you feeling this at 11 p.m. here in the central Canada?
Good evening, Éric, and good evening, everybody. Yes, Éric, well, I prepared for this, so I put myself in Pacific time as of yesterday. I tried to sleep in. I ate at different hours. I took a long nap this afternoon. It was amazing. Once I published the final analysis and projection of this election, I went to bed and it was marvelous. I mean, election days you can attest to this, Eric, but election days for people like you and I, it's before election that it's a big rush. Election day is actually very quiet, so
Yeah.
it was kind of sweet, I must say. How was your day today, Eric?
It was fine, all good. It's a long time to wait, though, 11 p.m., I find, for us.
It is, yeah.
Now, if you're on the West Coast or watching this from British Columbia, it is a reasonable hour, and the polls have just closed in British Columbia. So that is what we're here for, the provincial election. Now, just to tell you a little bit about what's happening, on the left of the screen is the results page from the CBC. It has a very nicely laid out page with a map, so we'll be using this throughout the night to show what the results are. You can leave comments. We'll be trying to keep an eye on them as much as possible. You will sometimes hear a sound from my cat, who is on the scratch pad right now. It wouldn't be a live stream without a cat content. And we're going to try to answer some questions during the night, so you can leave a live chat. We have links to the Numbers Pod, which is our podcast that we do every week. You can find that in the description. We have links also to the RIT and 338 Canada if you want to support the work that we're doing. And we're going to be waiting for the results to come in for BC. We're expecting it to be pretty fast because apparently they got tabulators and stuff like that. So we should get out of the way right now. It's a late night live stream as usual, so we usually have something to make the evening go nicely. I went out today and I found... This is not sponsored, but I found an actual BC cider. So this is bumper crop BC Craft crisp apple cider, 7%. Oh boy. And it's not bad. It's not bad.
Good for you. I mean, I could not find anything. The liquor stores in Quebec, SAQ, Société des Alcools du Québec, they're on strike. And so there was nothing from BC at my dépanneur. I couldn't do like last time with Newfoundland. I had Newfoundland vodka, but I am drinking my usual vodka soda. And so, no BC drinks, but it's only a partie remise, as we say. So
yeah. Hey, I just saw someone ask, why are we doing this on a Saturday? That's a really good question. But the BC government changed it ahead of the last election. It used to be, I think, on Thursdays or Tuesdays or whatever it was. But now it's on Saturday. This is the second Saturday election. I think it's supposed to help with turnout, give people more of a chance to go out and vote. Though apparently it was very wet out on the West Coast today. So I think some people might have had some difficulty. All right. So while we're waiting for the first results to come in, why don't we give a little bit of context about what's happening? All right. So, do you want to do it, or should I do it? Do you want to tell the story?
Well, the thing, do you want to talk about our final projections or what we expect tonight, or do you want to talk about the last year in BC
I think
politics?
we have to start at the beginning.
Yeah. I figure that if people are here watching us, they're probably political nerds and they must know at least the basics. But absolutely, this has been a very eventful year in BC politics. We're heading into, the realignment has already happened in British Columbia, generational realignment. But Éric, you're the history buff among us, so why don't you go ahead?
Well, the last election was in 2020. It was a pandemic election. John Horgan was the premier leading the BC NDP. They won a big majority government, had 57 seats, 48% of the vote. The Liberals, the BC Liberals, which are the right of center party in British Columbia, had 34%, 28 seats. The Greens had 15% and 2 seats. John Horgan resigned a few years afterwards. He had some health issues. He's now an ambassador out in Germany. David Eby came in as the new BC NDP leader, and things started to go weird on the right. So you had the BC Liberals, who decided that the Liberal brand was too toxic. Why not change the name? Decided to become BC United, which sounded like a soccer team. And a lot of British Columbians seem to have agreed because their numbers in the polls just started to tank.
Oh, yeah.
the BC Conservatives, who are not a major party, or at least hadn't been a major party in British Columbia, hadn't won a seat since the 1970s, had 2% of the vote in the last election, had really not really been a major party for decades, started rising in the polls. John Rustad, who had been a BC Liberal, he left that caucus or was booted out of the caucus over views that he had on climate change. He joined the Conservatives. The Conservatives started rising in the polls just at about the same time as Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives were rising in the polls. And it just started to snowball. And the fact that the Conservatives then moved ahead of BC United. Then some donors started to move over to them. Then some MLAs started to move over to them. And then at the end of the summer, Kevin Falcon, BC United, down to 10% of the polls, starting to lose MLAs left and right, threw in the towel, withdrew from the race, and then we have a old-fashioned NDP versus Conservative race out in Western Canada. And we have actually our first results. So that's just the timing right there. So we got 3 already coming in, all Conservative seats. We got one from Salmon Arm, Shuswap, Prince George Mackenzie, and looks like there's one down in the Abbotsford South.
Did you say Shuswap? Oh,
Shuswap.
Wow. That's okay. That's the first time
Shuswap?
I hear that. Shuswap.
So.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, good.
So that's it. So this is going to be interesting to see how the results come in using tabulators. What was your final projections you had just before we start talking about actual results?
So obviously, people who are here, they know the polling. It kind of converged towards the end. Of course, polling firms do not agree on the final numbers, but they're still fairly close. The range for the Conservatives goes from 40 to 45%. For the NDP, it goes from 41 to 46%, so there's significant overlap. My final projection had the NDP at 50 seats, but with a range that goes from 40 to 60. Obviously, this is a wide range. It's a bell curve, and it also includes scenarios where the polls are wrong a little bit. So the most likely scenario would be a short NDP majority. But there's a 25% chance that the Conservatives win the most seats, according to the numbers we had. And 25%, as you know, is not negligible. So the Conservative range goes from 30 in the low range, and it's a bad night for the Conservatives, to 51, so winning a majority. And the Greens from somewhere between 1 and 3 seats. I think the most likely scenario would be 2, but we'll see. Obviously, we depended on local polling, small sample size, high uncertainty. So this is kind of what we expect tonight. But you mentioned it earlier, Éric. I saw the images in many places in BC. That was
a lot of rain.
A lot of rain. Atmospheric river. And I think today must have been hard for some folks to go to the voting booths. And I hope everybody's okay. Some streets, and I'm sure some basements are full of water tonight. And perhaps these people really don't care about the outcome of the election. I know I wouldn't. So I hope everybody was safe and doing okay. But wow, that was a lot of rain.
We've been corrected in the comments. It is pronounced shoe swap.
Shoe swap. So I was right. Okay. All right.
I hadn't actually said it out loud before,
swap.
I just had to do it the first time. This is how it works often.
This is why we have
the commenters to correct us,
you.
Because as they mentioned, we're Easterners who don't understand anything. I also say, just to help me keep me perked up, I wanted to have a BC snack. I couldn't find something, so I got fuzzy peaches, because peaches are a staple of the interior, the fruit in British Columbia, very famous for their peaches.
Is that so?
Okay. It is. So I'm sure there aren't any actual peaches in fuzzy peaches.
No, there's no peaches in that.
But anyway, so shoe swap. Jeez. Okay. All right. We'll get it eventually, guys. All right. Also, we're getting told how to pronounce Vancouver. All right. That was just Kyle. So...
Vancouver. That's how you say it.
Yeah, we're going to just do that. We're just going to do all the French pronunciation all night. So the polls at the end of the campaign, pretty clear that it was close.
Closer.
So I got a whole list of them.
Okay.
So these are all the different pollsters that were done at the end of the campaign. Oh, wow. Just a lot of results came in. So why don't we just talk about that? So we're now up to 23 results are now coming. 23 ridings are now reporting. Already up to 23,000. I don't think we're going to have to be here for that long there, Philippe. So we got 48% of the vote right now for the Conservatives, 43 for the NDP, 12 seats that the Conservatives are leading in, 10 for the NDP, 1 for the Greens. Now let's take a look at the map. A lot of it does seem to be in the interior. If we're looking at the Vancouver area, Conservatives are ahead in Surrey, Serpentine River. They're ahead in Richmond, Bridgeport. They're ahead in Langley, Abbotsford, Maple Ridge East, Chilliwack, Cultus Lake. Not places that we would have been surprised to see them ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm not, they're ahead in Prince George. The NDP's ahead in North Coast, Haida Gwaii, and on various places in the Lower Mainland. The Greens are now leading in West Vancouver, Sea to Sky. So this will be a really good one to watch. Jeremy Valeriot is at 45%. The Conservatives are at 32% in this riding. This was decided by, I think, 60 votes.
It was a close one. It was also one that in the redistribution changed the outcomes. So the BC Liberals won that riding by a very razor-thin margin, as you say, Éric. But in the new riding, they changed the borders, the Greens would have come out ahead. And so I had many comments about this on my website. It showed clearly that these were the transposed results. And I saw many conversation on Reddit and other places about this riding that it was a Green Conservative race. And so if NDP voters in Sea to Sky wanted to block the Conservatives, they should vote strategically for the Greens. There's always a risk for this, obviously, and I don't think it's a majority of voters that do that. Early results show that the Greens are really like 12 points higher than I expected them, and it's all from the NDP.
Yeah.
So early results, but maybe there was some strategic voting in Sea to Sky. So interesting.
We got one person was asking what the map is. This is the online results tool that the CBC has. So it's at cbc.ca/BC, I guess. So right now the Conservatives are leading 37 seats. Boy, this is fast. This is like Ontario. 28 seats for the NDP, 1 for the Greens. And we'll see what's going to happen. I mean, there's Conservatives leading in Burnaby, although it is just one poll reporting. So a lot of these are really, really early. So we don't want to get carried away with the results just yet.
No, we don't.
But you can see that, as expected, right now the Conservatives are doing well in the interior, and the NDP is doing okay along the North Coast. Victoria so far, mostly NDP. Sandwich North and the Islands. We're going to be talking a lot about the Green ridings, I think. Well, this is close right now. There's 2 polls reporting, but it's 35% for the Conservative candidate in Sandwich North and the Islands, 34.5% for the NDP, and 29.1% for the Greens. We'll see what happens, but the Conservatives are off to a pretty good start, but not really any shocking numbers just yet in terms of what's blue, what's orange.
Yeah.
We'll see a bit more as it goes on. Surrey North, for example. There's an NDP cabinet minister there, and they're trailing. It's only 2 polls reporting. So we'll see what happens when more of the results come in. So this will be...
This is faster than we expected, especially in the marathons that we had this year, doing live streams for the by-elections that took forever. So they already counted more votes than in the by-election in the 15 minutes or so. Good for them. Do we know whether Elections BC counts the advance vote first, or is that because I know sometimes this information is available, sometimes it isn't.
I'd heard that they're actually redistributing the advance polls to where your polling station would have been. So I don't think that they're actually separated it out from the election day numbers. So the tabulators are going to be much faster. Now, it's not electronic voting. If you were voting in BC, you know this. You filled out a ballot, but it's just put into the system, and that is counted. So I think it has to, when there is a delay, it's just the delay of like reporting it and any last kind of things. We've seen this in Ontario, that it goes very, very fast. And then there's often a few ridings where there's some poll boxes that still need to be counted, and then we end up waiting a long time for those. But some of them come in very fast, as we've seen already. So, I mean, it looks like a lot have already been counted. We're only at 150 out of 2,238 polls reporting. So we still got a long ways to go. But so far, it is it is the kind of start that the Conservatives would like to have. I would say that's for sure, because out of the ridings where they're leading, where maybe that would be a bit of a surprise, Coquitlam, Burke Mountain, maybe, Surrey North, maybe. They're heading both of the Langleys, not too much of a surprise there. Cowichan Valley, I don't think they're going to hold on in Cowichan Valley. That's
I have here. I just clicked on Pectington Summerland. Right, this should be conservative. We think it's one poll reporting, but there's over 2,500 votes.
One.
So this looks like advanced voting. I don't think one poll has 2,500 votes normally. So
well, there's only 26 polls in the whole riding, so I think they're pretty big polls.
Yeah,
but
that's still a big one, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We're not sure exactly how the votes are going to come in. So, like, if we're talking about some of the ridings that we'd expect to go to the NDP, got Vancouver West End, Burnaby Centre, Vancouver Renfrew, Burnaby North, Surrey City Centre, Surrey Guildford, probably going to go to the NDP, Juan de Fuca, Malahat, Saanich South, Victoria Swan Lake, Victoria Beacon Hill, no ridings, no numbers just yet. So still very early. The Conservatives are ahead in 37, and the NDP is ahead in 28. But in a lot of these, it is single digits. Hey, we got the CBC already has an elected in Prince George Mackenzie. That's not too much of a surprise for the Conservatives to be winning that riding. Yeah. All right. So if anybody has any questions or anything like that, you can let us know. You can leave them in the comments. I have seen a couple questions saying that when we do have more of these results, have a better idea what's happening, should we take any of them to mean anything for the federal level?
Well, I mean, the realignment and the fact that BC United folded and kind of merged, I know it's not a merger, but kind of merged into the Conservatives, I think that was linked to what's going on federally. The results here tonight, I'm not so sure. I mean, we had a small sample poll from Sparks that had a crosstabs with federal voting intentions. And unsurprisingly, most federal Conservatives were voting for John Rustad in a provincial Conservatives. And most federal Liberals and federal NDP were leaning towards the NDP. So there was no surprise in those numbers. But thing is, federally, we've had polls that put the Pierre Poilievre Conservatives at 45 to 50% on a regular basis. I don't think Mr. Rustad is hitting this tonight. I mean, if he does, it's a surprise, and the poll would have missed the Conservative vote by a few points.
Yeah.
So I think it's always risky to make a link between the two. We'll have to wait and see.
One commenter suggested that if you go to the Elections BC website, and Philippe, you have a little bit more control over your browsers than I do, there is more information where the results are coming in, whether they're advanced or E-Day, so you might be able to answer some of those questions. So we got another big dump of polls. Now, how many ridings are we up to now? Almost all of them are reporting. Now all of the ridings are reporting. And we got 45 NDP, 45 Conservatives, and 3 Greens.
3 Greens.
This would be... I mean, the Greens are leading in Skeena. Okay, they're not even leading in Skeena. There's 2 votes counted, and the Greens have 1 of them. And for some reason, the system has defaulted to giving it to the Greens. Where's the other Green riding?
There's supposed to be 3. Beacon Hill.
Oh, Beacon Hill.
Yeah.
So this is Sonia Furstenau, where she's leading. There's 2 polls reporting. She's at 42% to 39.5 for Grace Lohr of the NDP. This is one they're definitely going to be keeping it on for the rest of the night. All right, so we got 45 to 45.
We are going to be done before midnight here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know about midnight. I think some of these last ones might take a while.
How many votes do we expect? We expect, 2.1 million votes? 2.2 million votes,
almost a quarter of the polls are already reporting. So, we could actually spend a lot of time just actually talking about the results once we get more of them, which is actually, imagine that. We're not just having to do... We haven't done an election in a year. So we've been doing by-elections. So we've been
slow by-elections.
Individual boxes. Yes, very slow. Wow. All right.
No independence. I mean, let's check on what independents? I mean, the Peace Rivers.
Yeah.
We think that they could do okay. Let's no, it's not
Peace River
happening.
North, Dan Davies has 20% of the vote. He is second.
Yeah.
And Peace River South,
Mike Bernier has 24%.
is in second, 24%.
So it's
he's
not
in second.
happening.
But yeah, no, it doesn't. If those two are doing that poorly, I'm guessing that a lot of the other ones. Where are the other ones? There was one in
Miss
Kootenai
Kirkpatrick.
Rockies.
Miss
Tom
Kirkpatrick,
Shapitka.
maybe. Yeah.
He's actually pretty close. He's at 32% to 44 for Pete Davis of the Conservatives. So that one might be one to watch. What were the other ones? There was a
Capilano. Miss Kirkpatrick has 21% right now.
Let me see if I can get to it.
It's going to be a Conservative.
Oh yeah, okay.
West Vancouver Capilano.
And then which else was there? There was also a Prince George North Caribou, was it? Yeah, Corley Oaks is in second there. She's at 27%. So it doesn't look like the independents are going to have much of a role here. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out for them, but it doesn't look like it's going to make that much of a difference. So we got 45 still for the NDP, 45 for the Conservatives, and the popular vote so far is 44.6 NDP to 44.3 for the Conservatives.
I mean, if you're the Greens, you want to stop the count right there, right?
Yeah.
45, 3 would be the best scenario for them. But, well, the best.
But they're not going to
what I
win.
mean, right?
They're not winning Skeena.
No, they're not.
They're not actually ahead. It's just a fluke in the system. It actually looks like an error because it says there's 0 polls reporting. So we should just
One
forget.
vote.
Well, it says there's 0 polls
Yeah,
reporting,
okay,
one vote
that's
for
a
the.
mistake.
That's just
Yeah,
an
it's a
error. That's
mistake.
just something
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
happening there. So let's forget that. In West Vancouver, okay, there's 10 polls reporting now, and Jeremy
that's
Valeriot
close.
is ahead by a point and a half.
That's
Some of these are going to
close.
be we're going to have to watch for a while.
Yeah.
So looking into the Lower Mainland and around Vancouver, Conservatives leading in Vancouver Kilchena, which would have been Kevin Falcon's riding. Looks like that'll be pretty close. Vancouver Langara, Brian Bergay, who in another life did something similar to what we did, what we do is ahead there. Those would have been the two Vancouver ridings I think we would have assumed that the Conservatives would be winning. Yaletown would have been the other one. Ooh, and it is close. It is close, Yaletown, just about 200 votes between the two.
Interesting.
But yeah, the map so far is kind of what we'd expect. Fraser Nicola, that's another one. The NDP ahead in Kootenai Central and Kootenai Monashee. They are the incumbents there. Leading in Penticton, that is a bit interesting.
That is a surprise. I
Yeah.
did not see that coming.
It is only 3-point gap between the two. Where else have we got? Look at the Kelowna area. Kelowna Center. So this is the riding that's concentrated on the city of Kelowna itself, or the downtown kind of core. And it's a gap of 58 votes. Boy, there's going to be a lot of these seats that I think are going to be decided by just a very small amount.
Huh.
Look at Surrey. What's going on in Surrey?
Surrey is blue right now.
Well,
Mostly
City Center
blue.
is NDP. Surrey North. It's a 2-point gap there for the Conservatives. Surrey Fleetwood. 0.5.
Conservatives are doing well. Conservatives are doing well on the map right now. I know it's early, just under 400,000 votes counted. A tie in the popular vote, a tie in the seats. This is a good map for the Conservatives so far.
Yeah, this is what they would need. But again, they're leading in Cowichan Valley. How is that possible? That used to be Sonia Furstenau's riding. I wouldn't have thought that was very likely to go over to the Conservatives. The Greens in third in that riding. And Furstenau, is she still leading she's still ahead by 31 votes in Victoria Beacon Hill.
It's going to be a long one. Yep.
Yeah. You can look at the CBC has the closest ridings right now, and they have it in terms of the votes, but you can see there's a lot of them where there's just a couple points separating the two. So there might be a lot of early counts in a lot of these, but I think we're going to have to wait till a lot of these come to the end before. What if it ended up in a tie?
Well, I mean, it is possible. I mean, it's always been possible, right? At some point in the campaign, I remember I got a lot of laughs from the media and from some followers on Twitter. I had 46-1. Now, obviously, if the Greens win two, and I expect them to win two, although right now we're not so sure, then a tie is impossible. They have to win an odd number. But I mean, we know that for the Conservatives, it's majority or bust. I mean, they'll be happy if they get close to power. Maybe they don't. I mean, some of our members in our Discord mentioned that there's a certain result that's in which everybody would be happy, right? If the NDP holds on to power but barely, the Conservatives do really well, they're in good position for 2028, and the Greens win maybe 3 seats, maybe hold a bounce of power, or at least if the NDP does win 47 or 48 seats, that means that nobody can catch a cold during when the legislature is sitting. Everybody has to be there, and the whip will have a lot of whipping to do. So, so there is a scenario where everybody's kind of happy. But it's all measured with respect to expectations. If you're the Conservatives and you expect to win and you don't, winning 44 to 45 seats could be disappointing. I just don't think it is, considering where the party is from, where the party came from, right?
Yeah. 0.
Yeah. I mean, a year ago, last October, we had the first few polls that had BC United being caught up by the Conservatives, even in some overpassing them. And my projection back then with a split right had the NDP at 75 and 80 seats. It was projected to be a blowout in there. Obviously, there was a reason for that. There was a split vote on the right, and it's not the case anymore. But a tie, yeah. I mean, so those who are asking, what happens if there's a tie? A minority obviously would be a tie. The incumbent still is Monsieur AB would still be the premier tomorrow morning if there's a tie. They would have to go through a confidence vote to see if they can get the confidence of the legislature. You would imagine that the Greens would put conditions, but the Greens would be far more likely to align with the NDP than they would with the Conservatives.
Yeah, considering also the position the Conservatives had on environmental issues to begin with, right? If the count stopped right now, we got 44.6 for the NDP, 44.3% for the Conservatives. I mean, at the very least, the polls have been pretty good so far. Because I got cut off when the results first started to come in, but all the pollsters. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pollsters who put out some numbers, and they were in the field in at least the last week. Yeah. And the ranges for the NDP goes from 42 to 46. That's it. There's not a lot of variation between those. For the Conservatives, it went from 40 to 45. So right now, with the NDP being at 44.6, right in the middle of where those polls were, the Conservatives may be overperforming if these numbers hold. For the Greens, they're really far down, but I think that's primarily because they don't have a full slate of candidates.
Yeah,
I'm sure when all the polls had them between 9 and 12%, but I bet you a lot of those people thought they could vote Green, went to their polling station today and said, whoops, there's no Green candidate here. They only had 69 candidates out of 93. So I think that's probably why the Greens are going to underperform their polls. But in their actual ridings where they have candidates, they're probably doing about as well as they should, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I mean, so far, the polls are good, as you said. Yeah. The polls were good. We probably will. I mean, there was a scenario where if the polls lean one way or another, right now they're right in the middle of the ranges that we have. So, the Greens just went down to a single.
Okay, well, that's probably because the ones from Skeena came in. So Skeena...
And it's Sea to Sky.
Yeah, has the Conservatives ahead, but boy, all of these are so close. 4 points in Skeena, that's the Conservative lead right there. And then in Sea to Sky, Greens are leading by 1.6 points. And in Victoria Beacon Hill, where Sonia Furstenau is running, now she is behind by nearly 10 points. So those are some bad polls that came in for them. Let's take a look at where the other leaders are doing. So John Rustad's in Nechako Lakes, and 72% of the vote. So he's been considered elected by the CBC. And David Eby down in Vancouver Point Grey
should be okay.
He looks like he's okay. He's at 53% with 7 of 20 polls. So Sonia Furstenau appears to be the only leader right now who is in some trouble. And the seat count, it just moved big. 49 for the Conservatives. That is huge if they're up to 49.
Penticton just, I can't say that word, just flipped as
Penticton?
we expected. Penticton, there you go.
They're heading 49 seats, but they're still behind in the popular vote. This is not what you would have expected them to do. So how would they be putting this together? Because this is
Surrey is bluer than I think we expected. Although I know it's early, but
yeah,
maybe
because they're leading
Surrey.
in Surrey City Centre. Again, it's by 40 votes. They're leading in Surrey North. That one looks a lot more. That's nearly 1,000 votes for the Conservatives there. Looking at Surrey Guildford, there it's a gap of just about 100 votes. Surrey Serpentine River, it is 200 votes. Surrey Cloverdale, there's hardly any votes counted at all. So yeah, I think right now it does look like they're overperforming in Surrey. So that would explain a lot of what would be happening. Sweeping Richmond, and that's not a surprise.
Well, Stevenson is a surprise. It's close though. Richmond Stevenson, I would expect to be a bit more orange.
Yeah.
But about Surrey, so 10 seats in Surrey. If we take the transposed results of 2020, NDP won 8 of them. And so it's really hard for the NDP to win an election if they get almost swept out of Surrey, which they had done really well in the past, in recent past. So, but yeah, right now Conservatives 49 in the seats, NDP 42 in the low range, and the Green Party is at 2. I think they took the lead in Saanich.
Yeah, Saanich North and the Islands. They're Rob
Which is expected.
Botterill. Yeah. Well, they don't have Adam Olsen on the ballot anymore, but they're ahead by 2 points. There's just some results that are just surprising to see. The Conservatives head Wandafuka Malahat. This is not really an area you would expect that the Conservatives would be that competitive. I mean, it's just that wasn't that. It was partially.
It was partially
John Horgan's riding.
John Horgan's, yeah.
Yeah, right. And we have the Conservatives head there, and after 10 of 24 polls reporting. So that would be a bit of a surprise. And also leading in Cowichan Valley, there by only 0.3 points.
500,000 each.
Yeah.
The NDP leading in the popular vote. I mean, right now, popular vote is right on the money. 45 for the NDP, 43 for the Conservatives, but the Conservatives hold an edge in seats.
Yeah.
But you would expect some of those Surreys to go back to orange.
Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of close ones. Nathan Cullen is behind in Bulkley Valley, Stikeen. That would be a bit of a surprise. He's a high-profile cabinet minister for them, for the NDP. The NDP is still holding on in Kelowna Centre. Again, though, it's only by less than 100 votes. So I think we're going to see a lot of these kinds of ridings that might just go back and forth with each poll that is counted. Because, as you said, we were looking at Surrey. So Surrey North, the Conservatives are ahead. They're ahead by nearly 1,000. Surrey Guildford, they're ahead by 100 votes. Surrey Serpentine River, they're ahead by 200 votes. The NDP in Surrey City Centre, geez, that's 26 votes. Boy, a lot of these are they're gonna flip back and forth, I think, with every update. But certainly this would be the kind of start that the Conservatives would be hoping for.
Oh yeah,
because this is near the higher end of what seemed like a plausible outcome for them.
Well, 43% in the vote is kind of in the middle. They have a more efficient vote than expected so far. But I'm looking at this, and of course, this is the first election we've done in a while.
Yeah.
And I was reminded, Éric, this summer I was at a watch party for the UK election. And I had remembered like how they present the results in the UK election. You know how they do, right? So basically, they don't reveal any partial data, and once all the votes are counted, they have all the candidates on a stage, and somebody reads the results. I have to say, now that I've seen both, I prefer our method. I want to see. Ooh, look at that! Oh, 100 votes! Oh, that's so close. Uh, this is much more exciting. But
Yeah.
wow.
It's now 47 to 44. 47 Conservative, 44 for the NDP.
Majority on the nose.
Hey, it is 47 seats. We haven't said that. It's 47 seats that you need for a majority government. You also need to name a speaker. So 48 might be a bit better than 47. So we'll see what happens there, especially if you can imagine the Conservatives winning 47 seats, needing to name a speaker. That could get a little bit complicated. The speaker would usually vote to ensure that the government doesn't fall. Yeah. So, it doesn't mean that the government would fall, but it would be a bit more challenging, I think, for the Conservatives. So they should try to get to 48 if they can. We'll see if they're going to be able to do it. Was the expectation that the Conservatives would do better in the Nanaimo area, but doesn't seem like they're leading in any of those seats. Nanaimo, Lanceville, the NDP's pretty comfortable there. Ladysmith, Oceanside, the NDP's ahead by 6 points. So some of the gains for the Conservatives not quite happening where we would have thought. How are they doing? Oak Bay, Gordon Head. No, they're not even close. So it is more of a rural map outside of Vancouver, because even in Kelowna, did they move ahead in Kelowna? Where's Kelowna? They're all the same color. Oh, now they have moved ahead moved ahead by 22 votes. So it is kind of interesting. This could be a bit of a rural and maybe more diverse suburbs, because they're doing well in Richmond, which has a high Chinese Canadian population, doing well in Surrey, which has a large South Asian population. Populations that are hard to reach for traditional pollsters, right?
That's right.
That was one of the things I'd spoken to someone who had told me that, said that one of the kind of unknowns with what the polling was going to show was whether these communities that might not be participating in polls that much are getting their votes picked up. And if the Conservatives got a lot of votes from the South Asian or the Chinese community, those kinds of ridings in Richmond, in Surrey, in Delta could end up being a lot stronger for them than we would have thought.
We should say that according to the CBC, Sonia Furstenau has lost. So Victoria Beacon Hill went to the NDP. Grace Lore, 47% of the vote, and right now Sonia Furstenau, 34. So,
I mean, it was a gamble for her, because she had been in the Cowichan Valley riding, which had been redistributed. So a lot of her friendlier votes got attached to Ladysmith Oceanside, or it got sent down to Juan de Fuca, I think. But both of those ridings, the Greens are not doing that good either, right? In Cowichan Valley, they're at 20%, and in Juan de Fuca, Malahat, they're at 23%. And so Sonia Furstenau decided to go to Victoria Beacon Hill to try to give a shot there. And, I mean, she did okay, 34%.
Yeah, that's good.
Further back, but it looks like the gamble didn't pay off for her. So will be a challenge for the Greens. They'll have to have a leadership race, presumably, if she doesn't run again, or if she doesn't try to stay from outside the legislature. And their other seats aren't exactly guaranteed. Rob Botterill is only up by about 600 votes in Sandwich North and the Islands. And in West Vancouver, Sea to Sky, Jeremy Valeriot is ahead by 400 votes. So it could be by a razor's edge if the Greens actually stay in the legislature in British Columbia.
Surrey City Centre, 9 votes now between the top two candidates.
Yeah.
Single-digit votes.
Hey, it's going to come down to Surrey, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I'm looking at Surrey right now. Again, it's bluer than we expect. And the seat count, according to CBC, is 46 Conservative, 45 NDP. And that's the magic number for the NDP. If the Greens do win 2 seats, the NDP needs 45. Yeah. So I'm looking at Surrey. If it stays that way, the NDP probably loses the election. But if a few of those flip the way we expect them to, then it's an NDP majority. I'm looking at, Kelowna is still close. Vernon Lumby, how's that close? I didn't know.
Well, Kevin Acton, who's a non-affiliated, was he a former BCU candidate? I think he might have been. They're at 15%.
Yeah, it takes splitting the vote there, right?
Yeah, that could be one of those that's a split. And the NDP is also still ahead in Kelowna Centre. Again, only by a handful of votes. But it would be something if if the NDP manages to hold on to power because their
Wow.
vote's stuck in the Okanagan, which I don't think that's what we would have expected. But you look at Vancouver, looking at it right now, the only riding where the Conservatives are winning in Vancouver proper is Kilchena, which was Kevin Falcon's riding. That's the only one, and it looks like they will win that riding. But all the other Vancouver ridings so far are sticking with the NDP, including Vancouver Yaletown, which was thought to be maybe one of the ones that the Conservatives would be able to win.
Yeah.
So Vancouver is sticking with the NDP. Burnaby is sticking with the NDP. Sort of the Tri-Cities area, Coquitlam, Maple Ridge, largely sticking with the NDP. But Surrey, Delta, Richmond, Abbotsford, Langley, that part of the Lower Mainland, the Fraser Valley, has gone over to the Conservatives. It's a 1-seat gap. One seat. This is why we do the elections. You got to see what's going to happen.
Who was it in our members that basically said this is a redux of 2017? And it looks like it so far. I mean, the BC Liberals, what was it, like 43, 41, and 3 in 2017? Yes, it was. Yes. The Greens won 3 seats and held the balance of power, but why 1?
Yeah.
Poor Christy Clark went just a few hundred votes away from saving the BC Liberals, and now they're gone. Okay. But the popular vote holds up, right?
This
go
is
ahead.
the CBC page, just because I like their map. It looks pretty good, and it's
Yeah,
easy
that's
to
good.
use.
Yeah.
And also, I was looking at Global. They always have little like videos playing and stuff. I needed something that was nice and clean for the live stream, so appreciate that from the CBC. You mentioned 2017. So the results were 43 seats for the Liberals, 40.4% of the vote.
Yeah.
41 seats for the NDP, 40.3% of the vote. Wow. And 3 for the Greens at 16.8. Twice the vote that the Greens have right now.
Yeah.
They've taken a real step back because they had 17% in 2017, at 15% 2020. Now they're at 8%. And right now the polls, aside from that, the NDP and the Conservatives got 45% for the NDP, and 43% for the Conservatives, pretty much where everybody had them.
This is so far this is a win for the polling industry because I mean not everybody will be right there, but it looks like almost all the pollsters that you mentioned earlier tonight will be within the margin of error. Yeah. If of course we're not done here, but it's been quite stable for a while, right?
Yeah.
So there's 1.4 million votes counted right now. It's 45% to 43 for the in favor of the NDP. I see the NDP has taken back the lead in the seat count, but
46,
barely.
45.
Wow.
How safe is that? Now let's look at the close ridings. So Kelowna Centre, they're ahead by 43 votes, the NDP. They're ahead by 73 votes in Richmond-Steveston. So you mentioned Richmond-Steveston before. This is here. The NDP is holding on at least there. Courtenay-Comox, which I would have thought would have gone over to the Conservatives, 290 vote lead for the NDP. But the Conservatives are only ahead by 11 votes in Surrey City Centre, 17 votes in Juan de Fuca, Malahat, 195 in Maple Ridge East.
Surrey is so close. Yeah. Surrey is really close.
Yeah. Of the 8 closest ridings on this list right now, 3 the NDP are ahead in, 4 the Conservatives are ahead in. So if those 3 ones where the NDP are winning go over to the Conservatives, they're up to 48. If the 4 where the Conservatives are leading go over to the NDP, they're up to 50. It's as close as it can get. We'll see if it keeps holding at this close level. This is interesting because we both, knew that this was a possibility, right? That the Conservatives would surprise. But I think that I'd written it on my site today. My 2 scenarios I thought that seemed plausible was close result like this or an NDP blowout. Because there's no real evidence that the Conservatives could have that blowout. They didn't have enough support in the Lower Mainland. They weren't running away with it enough in the interior and weren't poised to win a lot of seats in Vancouver Island. So we're in more of the close scenario. Although now it's 47 NDP, 44 for the Conservatives. So maybe we'll end up exactly where we thought everything was going to be.
I mean, Kelowna Centre blows my mind. I know it's...
I mean, that's urban rule, I think.
Yeah, I guess those independents that split the vote, that 10% for the independent Michael Hummer. I'm not sure. Let's call him not Michael.
Mike.
Yeah, Mike, non-affiliated, maybe is sporting it. It's just that even with, let me click on my site. I had 11% for the independent, but
How'd you
I
manage
had
that? That was good.
well, thing is, if you look at the Main Street riding polls, some of them were done in ridings where there are independents, and so you could see that many of them were doing okay, like 10, 12, 15%. And so, yeah, so I took a rule, especially not just any independent, but the former BC United candidates, or even in some case MLAs. So they're doing pretty much exactly how we thought. But the Conservatives are underperforming there, where in the interior, where I thought they would sweep the region. Now they're doing okay. I mean, if you look at the map, it's mostly blue, but there's some surprises in there.
Our friend Donovan, who chipped in $5, we appreciate it. He thinks the results are coming in too fast. The ballot should be longer. Of course, Donovan is a multiple candidate. He's been on the longest ballot committee several times.
Yeah.
Thank you to the LBC for not getting into British Columbia, because it's late enough, all right? We don't need to be here for hours on end.
This will be done before in Eastern time, before it was done in Verdun, right?
Just focusing in on the Victoria area, so it looks like the NDP is going to win all of the Victoria seats, or at least all of the ones that are close to the city center. Sandwich North and the Islands, again, it's still very, very close. It's about 600 votes for Rob Botterill. And then Wanda Fuka Malahat.
This is a tie right now. It's a tie though, but it's that should fall into the NDP. I would be shocked if the
that
Conservatives
would be a big
win
surprise.
this. Yeah.
But you know what? If the Conservatives do not win Wanda Fuka Malahat, they'll have been shut out on the island.
Yeah.
And there it just happened. Just as we were chatting, Wanda Fuka, Dana La Jeunesse is now narrowly ahead. But yeah, if we see this, that the Conservatives do not win a single seat on the island, that would be a real failure, I think, because it looked like they had a couple seats that they could do okay. Like North Island, they're only behind by 150 votes. So let's not bury them yet on the island. The Liberals didn't win a single seat on Vancouver Island in 2020. They only won one in 2017. So the island has really gone away from the
right.
Yeah. I have a feeling Pierre Poilievre is probably going to pick up a few seats on Vancouver Island based on the polls that we're seeing. This is part of the story if the Conservatives do end up coming short. Because I think both of us had suggested they could win maybe 2 seats on the island?
I had North Island as a toss-up leading blue. And was there another one? Let me check that.
I think Courtney Comox, I thought, was one that they could
win.
Yeah,
that's true.
And it is only 49 votes, so it could still happen. But give 2 more seats to the Conservatives, they're up to 45. And then it's a 1-seat gap between the two of them. How is Surrey doing now? Surrey is quite blue.
It's quite blue.
They exchanged maybe some prospects on Vancouver Island for more in Surrey. Surrey City Centre being Conservative right now is surprising to me. It is only 48 votes.
I mean, that's the election right there. I don't want to be to oversimplify this, but I'm looking at this map. There are no big surprise. Well, there are some surprises, but no tremendous surprises. Now we have 48 NDP, short majority, 43 Conservatives. Popular vote still 45-43 in favor of. Again, the polls were right in there.
No one had 45-43 though.
Exactly 45-43. Hang on. I mean, no.
Palace had 45-42.
Oh yeah, Palace 42. Okay. Yeah. Léger at 46-42.
46-42. Ipsos at 44-42. Research at 44-41.
Everybody's going to be close, but
everybody's going to be really. Someone's going to be like a teeny bit ahead, and they're going to be like best pollster in Canada, and the worst one is going to be like 4 points back, and they're going to be worst pollster in Canada. No one's actually going to be really that far off. I think the further stuff will probably be. It might end up being someone like Polera, just because the Greens were too high.
Yeah.
Which,
But I know Main Street took a lot of flack from many people because they were. I mean, I was asked, "Why is Main Street the outlier?" And I kept telling them, first, it's not an outlier if you don't know the results. Like you have to wait until you see the results to qualify that as an outlier. I know colloquial speech, right? It was the one that was like off from the others. But the last poll for Main Street had the Conservative at 45 and the NDP at 42. Well, that's within the margin of error. Yes, it has the wrong like winner in a popular vote, but statistically, who cares about that? It's within the margin of error. The Greens at 8. I'm looking forward to make this little calculation to take the percentage of the Green vote where they had candidates. It could be close to 12 or 13%. They had candidates in 69 of 93.
Well, I mean, you can do a simple calculation.
Yeah.
If you run the calculation on my
there you go. There you go.
calculator, and you just extrapolate it for the number of ridings where they didn't have candidates, they would be at 11.3.
Well, so that's like perfect. That's exactly what the poll said.
Hey, we are reading the comments. I'm trying to keep up with the comments. It's hard. There's lots of them.
I am not reading the comments because I can't. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I'm trying
I would
to
have
read
to
the
shut up
there.
and just do this. I have a single track mind. Do you want me to read some comments?
No. No, it's fine. I got it. They're mostly chatting with each other. It's very nice. But I am reading the comments, guys. I am keeping an eye on it. It's just that the screen keeps going up and down, and I lose some of them. And, you know, as we were talking, Conservatives are ahead now in two ridings on the island. Courtney Comox, they're ahead by 129 votes. And Wanda Fuka-Malahat, they're ahead again.
Yeah.
That is just a surprise.
That is a big surprise.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. We did think that maybe two ridings on the island could go, but I would have thought it would be North Island. And in North Island, they're ahead by 400 votes.
That's still close.
Yeah, they're still, but
wow, this is fast.
We're not used to it. Oh, it's just such a rush. It's a 600 vote lead now for Jeremy Valeriot in West Vancouver Sea to Sky for the Greens. So that's starting to look, there's 22 of 27 polls reporting, so that's starting to look like the Greens might get that one. In Saanich North in the Islands, Rob Botterill starting to move ahead there as well, 25 to 29. So it seems likely the Greens will end up with two. I'm not sure if they're doing anywhere else or they're doing anywhere close.
I had them at 2 and possibly a third one. But among the two, there was Sonia Furstenau. And the possibly third one was Sea to Sky. So far, it looks good. It's tight, though. But clearly, in Sea to Sky, there's been some strategic voting there to make the Green win. Because the NDP at 26... that's much lower than we expected.
I've been alerted in the comments. Take a look at Surrey City Centre.
All right, let's do it. And it is, a perfect tie. Throw 18 of 20 polls reporting. So that one is almost over.
It's almost over, and it's 5,910 votes to 5,000. Oh,
Flip
two vote lead now for Amna Shaw. It is just running away with it. 2 votes. In Surrey City Centre.
Wow.
That is going to be recount territory. How did Brigade do in Vancouver Langara? He seems to be behind by about 300 votes, but it's not over yet.
It's close. Yeah.
And Richmond Steveston still narrowly hanging on for the
it's
NDP.
It's Steveston. Okay. I say
what did you think
French
it was?
Steveston. I pronounce the letters that are
Steveston.
there. Yeah. Who's right, people?
Maybe the commenters can tell us. Is it
Steveston?
Steveston or Steveston? It's not Steveston. Come on.
Steveston. Yeah, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I'm not the one to ask. Yeah, some of those surveys are starting to come back orange. Cloverdale.
But the NDP is doing okay. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say how they're doing in the interior because they're not winning Buckley Valley Stakeen. Nathan Cullen's behind now by 10 points. That's going to be tough for him to come back. This is the kind of riding, though, where it might depend where the votes are coming from, right? Because it's a huge riding. It takes up the entire northwest of the province. So it would depend on where the votes are coming from. So we might not want to bury him just yet. And apart from that, they're doing pretty good in the Kootenays. They've got 2 of them. And they're doing okay in the Okanagan because they're leading in Kelowna Centre by 50 votes. It's not much of a lead. and Vernon Lumby, where they're ahead by 500 votes. So underperformance maybe in Surrey and overperformance in the Okanagan. Would not have thought that for the NDP.
I must say my 47th seat for the NDP was Surrey Serpentine River. And I see right now it is only a 2-point lead for the Conservatives.
Yeah.
So, yes, there are some surprises. So, I mean, I can see right away, I mean, the overall numbers will be mostly correct. We will fall within range.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting blown out here.
Yeah.
But individual seats, I mean, this is something that we had mentioned in our podcast, that there's a new map, there's a new party, a realignment, a merger, or a party that folded 2 months before the writ. 1 month before the writ. And so we had warned that some of those individual seats, the projection, unless we have good sized polling in the riding, which we didn't really get, we're going to be off. And I can already see some of the seats I get off, but it looks like it will balance itself out.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, that's really the best I think you can do when you have a party that is a slightly different voter coalition that is becoming the main party, right? Because this party would be a bit further to the right, a bit more populist than the old BC Liberals, which probably moved some voters in some parts of the province over to the NDP. But maybe it might have helped. Like the fact that the Conservatives are winning right now, they're ahead in Courtney Comox and Wanda Fuka Malahat on Vancouver Island. Liberals never would have won those seats. But the NDP is ahead in Kelowna Centre. And that is not, I don't think, what we would have expected.
No.
But again, maybe it's the people in Kelowna, more the urban progressives, a bit more progressive, let's say, than some of the outlying ridings in Kelowna going to the NDP. Kelowna and all, so West Kelowna Peachland. See, peaches. Fuzzy peaches. Easy win for the Conservatives. Kelowna Mission, big win for the Conservatives. Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream, big win for the Conservatives. So it was really all of that NDP vote was concentrated in Kelowna Centre if they can hold on there. And the gap is less than 50 votes.
Vernon Lumby is also one that surprised me.
Yeah. There had been a riding poll there, hadn't there been?
Yes, there was a riding poll. I had 48 for the Conservatives and 41 for the NDP in my projection with a bracket. So both parties are within range. But I know I thought a 7-point lead in my projection. It's a leaning, but still, it's fairly rural. You would have thought, but the independent here is overperforming. He has 15%. Kevin Acton has 15%. Good for him, but looks like he may have cost. Well, you know what I mean. Voters do what they want, but maybe a little split of the vote can help the NDP here.
Well, it's not really how things work, but right now there's a 5-seat gap, so you have to flip 3 seats, right? And right now the 3 seats where the NDP has the smallest lead,
Surrey City Centre is 1.
Yeah, is 299 votes. So right now, there's 299 votes between the NDP and the Conservatives having the most seats in this election. It'll probably get
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Probably get a bit bigger as we go on, but it could end up being just a handful of votes, 100 votes in 3 or 4 ridings that will end up deciding which party forms the government here. And that's just a close election. And you look at the province-wide vote, we're at 757,000 for the NDP and 737,000 for the Conservatives. 20,000 votes across all of British Columbia that is separating the NDP from the Conservatives. So that's a close election, even if the seat gap might be 5 seats or so, which again is very close. Are you expecting that it'll be this close in New Brunswick, or?
Well, if we can take a 30-second pause. We had a poll today in New Brunswick, 10-point lead for the Liberals. We know the Liberals have to win the popular vote to have a shot at this election by 4, 5, 6 points. But 10 points may do it. So we'll see on Monday night. But
we're going to have a live stream on Monday night, so you can join
And
us
more
for that.
polls tomorrow. More polls tomorrow too as well.
Yeah, well, presumably we'll have more polls tomorrow. We'll see. It'd be nice to have a
47-44 now.
Yeah.
So clear NDP majority, right? What do you do there? You ask
majority.
You ask for a Green to be a speaker. Basically.
Maybe.
Hey, would you like to have a chauffeur and pretty good
But the thing
salary?
is, the two Green candidates that are leading would be rookies. You can't put a rookie in as the speaker.
Well, how hard is it? Right? I'm sure it's incredibly hard. So
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. But I mean, the NDP probably will be able to count on the Greens to at least make sure they don't get defeated. I can't imagine that the Greens would, after losing their leader, having what is going to end up being their worst performance.
Wow, that's true.
Since 2013, I don't think they're going to be all that keen on a new election right away. So, that's that they at least know that they have a decent bit of a cushion thanks to those Green MLAs if they get elected. And how are they looking right now? West Vancouver Sea to Sky, 500 votes, 5 polls to go. And in Sanish North and the Islands,
It's holding up.
about 1,200 votes. So he's probably okay. Rob Botterill is probably going to be the next MLA for that riding.
So NDP sweep in Victoria, we should
Yeah.
say. I mean, I don't think Sanish is considered in Victoria, right? It's just outside, right?
Yeah.
The capital region going for the NDP once again. In
Conservatives
big
still
numbers.
leading. There's 8 polls to go in Wandafuka Malahat, but the Conservatives are still ahead there. And they're still ahead in Courtney Comox by 200 votes. But that could, a lot of these could flip. Like, again, if we're looking at the closest ridings right now, 9-vote lead for the Conservatives in Surrey City Centre, 40-vote lead for the NDP in Kelowna Centre, and then we're starting to get into the hundreds of votes. So maybe it's a little less likely that they will flip around. But definitely some interesting results here. Just keeping an eye on the comments there. If anybody has any comments, questions that we could try to answer, or things that we should look at. People are yelling at me to look at Surrey Cloverdale. So let's take a look at what that looks like.
It's only one poll.
That's got to be a mistake of some kind.
Yeah.
How's it look on the Elections BC website?
I'm not on the. Let's check it out. By the way, so people, if you enjoy this very lively conversation that Éric and I are having, please go to the numberspod.ca and sign up for our weekly podcast.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun talking about Canadian politics. We go through all the polls, all the provinces, federal numbers. Some municipal numbers will come eventually, but
You're not going to sell it to many people with the municipal, I don't think.
no, that's true. But the big cities is always fun. Well, no, it's not always fun, but we will talk about them. Some of them. Elections BC. Okay, what does it look like? Because that's true.
We have
that
3 different
Cloverdale is
comments, 4 now, that they forgot the password in Cloverdale and can't access the boxes. Did they try 1, 2, 3? Password 1, 2, 3. Who does? You know what? You can have
That
the
can't be
smartest,
real.
the
That can't
smartest,
be real.
highest technology system that you can. Human error will always get in the way. We'll always find a way to screw everything up. If that is what is actually happening, that is hilarious.
So Cloverdale.
And this is, and Surrey
Yeah.
Cloverdale is a pretty important riding, right? That's where Eleanor
Yeah.
Sturko was running. She was one of the BCU MLAs that when she crossed over to the Conservatives was a pretty important symbolic move. People are saying that it is a password issue in Surrey Cloverdale.
Well,
Who has the password? Who sat around and was like, what is going to be the password?
no,
in
they
Surrey
mistyped the
Cloverdale?
password 3 times in a row, and now they're
Yeah.
locked. And so you need the elections officer to show up, and the whole region is underwater. So, oh god, that's not.
You would
funny,
think that
though, but,
Elections BC might have some sort of override, but maybe that would be too smart.
So my projection for Surrey Cloverdale, NDP leaning. It was projected as close. I had 49 to 45, a 4-point gap. And this is pretty much what they had before they lost the password. So we'll see. But this one matters. Well, every seat matters right now. But how many do we have elected? Okay, so 31 NDP, 28 Conservative. So that's, to my count, that's 59. So that means we have 34 seats, yes, left to be confirmed. 46-45 now for the NDP.
We have a request to talk about the Halifax election.
No,
oh my
thanks.
God, 46-45. I think instead we'll talk about Halifax. I didn't see what the result was there, but yes, we're now at 46-45 in terms of the seats. So what would have flipped there? Conservatives now ahead in City Centre. They're ahead in Courtney Comox, Maple Ridge
Surrey
East.
City Centre is blue, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an 8-vote lead for the Conservatives in Surrey City Centre.
They're now
Big
ahead in
surprise.
North Island by about 350 votes. This is going to keep going back and forth, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. But the NDP holding on in Kelowna Centre and Vernon Lumby. There is like a geographic pattern to all of it, right? The NDP have these two Kootenay ridings stretching into Vernon Lumby and then almost reaching down into Kelowna Centre. And then when you look here in the Lower Mainland, they have the north part, or they have north of Vancouver, they have Vancouver, the Coquitlam's, the Burnabys going out to Maple Ridge. But then south of the Fraser River, it's Conservative. Most of Surrey, most of Richmond, one of Delta. They got Langley, they got Abbotsford, they got Chilliwack. There's clearly a geographic divide in the province, which we've seen before, but it is interesting to see just how stark it is. And also that a lot of the Conservative vote is following the same pattern of the BC Liberal vote. There's a bit of exceptions, but this is largely one coalition of voters, with a few exceptions, moving over to this new party. Just switching color, switching party name, but apart from that, sticking with the same party that they voted for in 2020, 2017, 2013. You look at the popular vote results. If we take out 2020, the Liberals had 40% in 2017. They had 44% 2013. They had 46% 2009. Conservatives at 43%.
Yep.
For the NDP, they're at 45%, which is down 2 points, 2 or 3 points from 2020. But they had 40% 2017, 40% 2013, 42% in 2009. So they are still doing better than those elections. So it is kind of a traditional BC election where you have the two parties within a few seats, a few votes of each other.
I mean, if the NDP does finish the night with 45%, we could say that it mostly held from 2020. I mean, yes, they had a peak. Did you say they had 48%, or it was
They had 47.8%. Yeah.
Yeah. So just a shade under 48. If they manage to have 45, that's pretty good when you're in power for 7 years and you only lose 3 points.
Yeah.
The Conservatives just took the lead.
46-45.
It's the Surreys again, and on the island as well.
Yeah, because now they're leading 3 ridings on the island.
Wow.
They're still only got the one in Vancouver, but there's only 2 Surreys that are sticking with the NDP. There's how many Surreys? 1, 2,
10.
Okay,
10 seats in the Surreys.
8. If the Conservatives end up winning by a seat, it'll be because Surrey went their way. Though they should have won Kelowna Centre and Vernon and Lumby, which they're still trailing in. Kootenay Central, how's that going? Oh, that's a pretty big lead for the NDP. And Buckley Valley Stikine. Cullen's not closing the gap there, so we'll see what's going to happen. But yeah, this is still coming down to just a few of it.
That's a big surprise, isn't it?
Well,
Stikine.
it is still a bit of a surprise. Yeah, it's a rural riding.
Wow.
But yeah, that's a lot of blue there. So yeah, so the Conservatives right now are ahead by 8 votes in Surrey City Centre. 105 in Surrey Guildford, 190 in Courtney Comox. So yeah, these are. I wish it showed how many polls we were still waiting for. So Surrey Centre, is the closest one. How many polls we got? 18 of 20. This is going to get decided pretty soon. And it's an 8-vote gap. Surrey Guildford.
I think they found the password in Cloverdale
Did they?
because the count has increased. So.
Okay. There's only 2 polls left in Surrey Guildford, so they're holding on there. Just to take a look at Surrey Cloverdale, yeah, they've moved ahead now. 300 votes for Eleanor Sturko. What else? Which other ones? Courtney Comox. How many poll boxes we still got? 23 or 25. We're starting to get to the end of the count in a lot of these ridings.
Wow.
So we'll see what's going to happen. How many polls we got left? Still got 400 polls overall. So still a decent amount, like 20% or so. But the Conservatives are behind by 20,000 votes in the popular vote. So I really wouldn't have thought that the Conservatives had the more efficient vote.
Thing is, all these Surreys that are blue right now, I look at them. Well, the ones, the Surrey South and Surrey Right Rock, those are not surprises. Like we knew those would lean towards the Conservatives. But they're very, very close. Like I see 49-47, 49-48. I go through Surrey North Surrey North is a bigger gap, 51-43. So they are overperforming by close margins in Surrey.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And also, you said, I mean, do they still lead in Juan de Fuca? Yes, they do. Wow. 2 points.
Yep.
Still. 3
more polls to go.
Oh, Juan de Fuca just flipped as I was looking at it. Dana La Jeunesse of the NDP. It's, of course, extremely close, but the NDP just retook the lead in Juan de Fuca.
Yep, just happened for me. Only a
Wow.
couple seconds behind you, but there you go. The 2 polls left. I did see a comment saying how it's a bit confusing how the polls are working, because it's true. It had said 2 polls were reported, 2 polls left to go, and the numbers moved. So it is a bit confusing exactly what's happening. Kelowna Centre, what's happening in Kelowna Centre? 15 vote lead for Loyal Wildridge over Christina Lowen.
Oof.
That 10% for Michael Humer could end up making the difference if the NDP ends up holding on there. And in Vernon Lumbee, it's the same situation. Kevin Acton getting 3,852 votes, and there's only 500 votes between Harwinder Sandhu and Dennis Giesbrecht in Vernon Lumbee. So could end up being pretty significant. Some of those candidates, not the incumbent MLAs. See, Dan Davies ended up with only 21% of the vote in Peace River North.
Well, still pretty good for an independent, right?
Well, Mike Bernier had been there for multiple elections.
Yeah.
And he's at 25%. So some of them not doing that good.
Surrey Guildford, less than a point. Yeah, it's Cloverdale. How's it going in Cloverdale? Cloverdale, they have 10 of 20 polls reporting. So yes, the password issue has been resolved. I'm looking forward to know what the hell happened there.
Yeah.
If we ever know. But
yeah. So we got
River.
15 votes in Kelowna Centre, 9 votes in Surrey City Centre, 102 votes in Surrey Guildford. So a lot of these are still very, very close.
I mean, I'm on the Elections BC, and they indicate how many advance boxes and how many final voting day are showing. Let me refresh that. If we look at Surrey City Centre, again, very, very close. 6 of 7 of advance voting have been counted.
Okay.
And voting day is 11 of 12. So yes, they seem to be counting at the same time, basically, concurrently. Interesting. Let me look at Skeena. Skeena, 17 of 18 of voting day and 5 of 7 advance ballot. So it really looks. Oh no, it's not Skeena. Wait, what was it? Stikeen? Sorry, Skeena. We know.
Conservatives moved ahead in Kelowna Centre, so that seems to have flipped the Conservatives back in front, 46 to 45.
Oh, Nathan Cullen of the NDP, only one of 5 of advance boxes. So basically, they in Berkeley Valley, Stikine, I can't pronounce that. They counted almost all of the voting day ballot boxes, and only one of 5 of advance. So I would wait until I call this one.
Okay, we'll see what the advance poll says there for.
If
Nathan
the NDP
Cullen.
got their vote out on advance voting, it could still flip.
Well, if anybody's going to get their vote out in the advance vote, you would expect it to be the NDP because they had the money and the volunteers and the organization more than the Conservatives would have had.
Yeah.
But we'll see if that ends up being the case or not. So Kelowna Centre flips. So this seems to be what has been putting the Conservatives ahead. The NDP still holding on in Vernon-Lumbee. And Wanda Fuka has gone back to the NDP, not by too much. But the Conservatives still leading in North Island by about 400 votes, but still lots of polls left to count in North Island. And in Courtenay Comox, it is a lead of about 200 votes for Brennan Day of the Conservatives. So still lots of individual seats that are going to that is going to decide this. So the turnout, Duncan asked about turnout in the last couple elections. The last one I think was about 53.
Yeah, it was low.
Yeah, it was pretty low because usually the BC was usually north of 60% of the turnout, I believe. I did see someone suggest that the turnout already is at about 53.
I see, 52.4 on BC's election website, but this is preliminary. So.
Yeah. Well, if the vote is, because once the votes all get counted, it'll keep going up. But when the vote is higher in elections, that is usually bad for the incumbent government because it usually means people are motivated to get out and vote out the government. When turnout is low, it usually means that a lot of people are not that motivated to vote out the government, and so a lot of those voters almost stay home as a default vote of approval for the government. So we did see that there was a good turnout so far, but a lot of it was in the advance poll because there was over 1 million votes cast in the advance poll. A lot of people might have been discouraged from going to vote today because of
rain. Yeah,
because of the rain. We had this question from Nerd77: which party's sweating more currently? It's got to be the NDP. Conservatives right now are leading by a seat, and I wonder if they believed that they were going to win.
Well,
I think the NDP probably thought they were going to win.
Yeah. It reminds me a bit of the 07 election in Quebec. At some point during the night, I mean, I know it's not the same result, but at some point during the night, the ADQ took the lead, and there was a camera from Radio-Canada that was with Mario Dumont of the ADQ, and they showed him on the TV, and he was looking at the TV, and he looked pale. Like, he looked like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And so I wonder, because this Conservative Party, let's say they do win an additional seat and they get that 47th. There's a lot of rookies in there.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of rookies in there, and they will have a very steep learning curve, which is, there's nothing wrong. You have to learn on the job, right? And this is a job, being an MLA, an MP. But it could be problematic in the first few weeks if they pull it out. But we'll see.
What would happen if it ends up this way? Would the Conservatives actually form the government?
You would think. Well, the thing is, the Green Party could say, well...
That's what I mean.
All right, how about that electoral reform, right? Well...
Well, maybe. But, like, this is exactly the 2017 scenario, right?
Yeah, it is.
Where... but then they would need to name a speaker and all this kind of stuff. So if it ends up being a one...
Well, the thing is, by convention, if there's a tie vote, the speaker votes with the government. So
yeah, to keep the government in,
yeah,
but not to pass legislation, which starts to get hairy.
Yeah.
So David Eby, if it remains this way, he will get the first shot to continue to be premier. If he makes a deal with the Greens, then he gets to stay so the Conservatives would not necessarily get to form government. David Eby has won in Vancouver Point Grey. We're just taking a look at it. He won pretty comfortably. John Rustad has been elected in the Chaco Lakes. Again, he won very comfortably, 68% of the vote. But Sonia Furstenau came up short.
Came up short. Big short. Yeah.
Victoria Beacon Hill, 47% for the NDPs. Grace Lohr, only 34% for Sonia Furstenau. Maybe she wouldn't have had a shot to win anywhere with the changing in the map, but doesn't look like it. Well, clearly the gamble didn't pay off for her to move over.
Still 2 of 10 Surrey seats for the NDP. That's where they underperform.
Yeah.
Like, there are surprises here and there. It cancels out. Losing Surrey doesn't cancel out. But yeah.
Yeah, that it really is it. Only 2, because I think Surrey City Centre and Surrey North seem to be pretty safe, and maybe Surrey Guildford. I think the only ones that I thought looked particularly troublesome for the NDP would have been Serpentine and Cloverdale. But yeah, it looks like those 3 Surreys in the north might end up deciding the election, and not by a lot.
No, it's close.
It's 100
like 2-3 points.
Yeah, it's 121 votes in Surrey Guildford. It is, how is it still in Surrey Centre? 12 votes in City Centre, and in Surrey North, it is, that one's more comfortable. That's 1,200 votes for Mandeep Dhaliwal. So that was a pretty clear result there. But yeah, that's going to will be the story either way, right?
Yeah.
Whoever wins this, that'll be the story, because I think that the Conservative, because everything else is more or less going as expected. It's just that the Conservatives are winning those extra seats from the NDP in Surrey. Comes down to Surrey.
Nathan Cullen in Bulkley Valley, still down 1,000 votes. It's not that much. I mean, it's 13 points, but it's only 1,000 votes. 8 boxes left, including most of the advance votes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Hey, it frees him up if Jagmeet Singh decides not to.
I mean,
hey, he ran in 2012. He was a candidate.
We had questions earlier about the link to the federal scene. And if I'm Pierre Poilievre and I'm looking at that map, I mean, blue Surrey looks good, right? I mean, it's not a surprise, because right now I think we have just the outskirts of Vancouver going blue in our map, but this would confirm the projections that we've had.
Yeah.
So, wow.
Yeah. And I mean, like, the popular vote right now is 44.6 for the NDP. Again, that the Conservatives might end up winning with less of the vote is just a bit of a surprise, I think. But 43.4% for the Conservatives. But the federal Conservatives, I think, would be disappointed with 43% of the vote in British Columbia right now.
They would,
Yeah.
yes. But you would imagine that many people who voted for the Mike Berniers and the Dan Davies and the Independents, I mean, that shaves off a few points. But that's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Green's holding on, huh? Wow. Was Vancouver still 3 points?
I had a question about how Nanaimo went. Nanaimo, all orange. Nanaimo, Lanceville, the Conservatives conceivably had a chance. Only 40% for Gwen O'Mahony, who used to be an NDPer. And Nanaimo, Gabriola Island, that one was thought to be pretty safe for the NDP. Sheila Malcolmson, she got reelected. Ladysmith Oceanside, this was supposed to be one of these kind of swing ridings. Stephanie Higginson won it pretty easily for the NDP. So Nanaimo stuck with the New Democrats. The only parts of the island that went for the Conservatives, or are currently going for the Conservatives, is the north part. So Courtney Comox and North Island. And both of them are still relatively close. So we still need to wait and see what's going to happen with some of these. Courtney Comox is only 200 votes. That was the really close riding, though. That was the one that cost Christy Clark, I think, her majority in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So some of these ridings just are close every time, and it's really just kind of amazing.
Green's overperforming. Courtney Comox, 21% almost. Okay. So popular vote 43-45. This hasn't changed in a while.
Yeah. Anybody
Wow.
have 43, 45? No, I guess what we said before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's close though.
Yeah, everybody's pretty close. You know, who's going to end up being really close?
Forum.
Forum.
43-43.
Forum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I mean, Palace Data has 45-42. That's
that's a lot. Everybody's going to be like we said before. No one's going to be way off here.
yeah.
So someone asking about the speaker situation. So how it works is that the speaker comes from one of the parties, right? So you have to nominate one of your MLAs to be the speaker. Usually the governing party gets to be the speaker, gets to nominate the candidate to be the speaker. And then they don't vote on bills anymore. They only vote when there's a tie. When there's a tie, the speaker has precedents. They have two precedents that they follow. One is that they vote to continue debate. So if there is a bill that has the support of the opposition and it's tied, the speaker will still vote to keep that debate going. So even if it's an opposition bill. But when it comes to defeat of the government, the speaker will almost always vote. The precedent is to not defeat the government. So if we do end up with a 1-seat gap and the party names the speaker, it doesn't mean that they will end up being defeated, because the speaker will break the tie in favor of the government when it comes to confidence. And as I was chatting, NDP now back up 46-45.
Which flipped? Which?
You want to guess?
I don't see it. One
City
of the Surreys?
Center, Surrey City Center.
Ah, there you go. Oh, it's now a 15-seat, very comfortable cushion.
Yes. Yeah, it's 50. But see, again, it's only at 18 of 20. I don't understand how the polls reporting
Let me check if it's
on this is
advanced.
working.
So this is City Center?
Yeah.
Let me check. Surrey City Center. Yeah, I mean, so they are entering the results as the box is being counted, not when they're done with the box. Basically,
I
is what
see.
we. Well, thing is, it's more of a question, because usually we don't see that.
Yeah.
But it's true that riding as big as Surrey, there's only 20 boxes. That's 19 boxes. That's
Well, I think when they
that's
have
low.
tabulators, they can have fewer boxes.
Well,
Like we
that's
saw
true.
that in
Yeah.
Ontario as well.
Yeah. But wow.
Boy, this just keeps going back and forth. I will be very curious if David Eby holds on with a 1-seat win. What is his speech? What is he going to
Tonight?
say? Is he going to treat it like a big victory, or not?
A win is a
like
win.
big victory.
A win is a win. I mean, if
1 seat though.
is there
1 seat out
so-
of 93. That's what's
true.
incredible.
I know, but same thing for the Conservatives. Okay, we're talking here scenarios. Is there a difference between 46-45 for the NDP or 46-45 for the Conservatives?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a huge
because the NDP governing with the Greens, if the NDP has more seats than the Conservatives, even if it's just one. I mean, if John Rustad wins 46 seats tonight, just comes one short of the majority, he still can give a speech tonight says we elected more seats than anybody, and he would be right. But in the governance, so this may not last. I mean, we talked about who's ready for 2028. This may not last that long.
Yeah, you're right. This might not last that long, because the last minority government, which had a cushion of 1 seat, John Horgan's in 2017, it only lasted for 3 years. And maybe would have and could have lasted less time if it wasn't for the pandemic that boosted Horgan's numbers during that time. So it is going to be interesting to see how this plays out either way. But see, if the NDP does end up with 1 more seat than the Conservatives, they'll have more legitimacy, more moral legitimacy.
Yeah,
obviously
a little bit.
The rules are the rules.
We agree.
But if they end up one seat back, David Eby still will be able to go to the legislature and present himself as the premier, put forward a throne speech, and if he gets support from the Greens, then he would be able to stay in power. Even if he's got fewer seats than the opposition Conservatives. So that's why I think for 1 seat difference between the two, it'll make a big difference between the two.
Wow. So North Island is not over. It's still close. Courtney Comox, 200 votes. That's nothing.
I mean, the CBC still has 26 ridings to be called.
Yeah.
So we're not done just yet.
Stikine has not moved. Vernon Lumby. That's one the Conservatives should have had, huh? It's not over yet, but it's very close.
But 15 points for Kevin Acton. That'll be that'll be a bit of a story. A lot of these will end up being, right? Because if we're talking about some of the closest ridings right now, Surrey City Centre, actually, I don't think there is really much of a vote split happening there. Because did the Greens have a candidate? Oh, the Greens have a candidate. So the Greens have 810 votes in Surrey City Centre that they're probably wishing was more likely to go their way, because the Greens only have a candidate in half the ridings in Surrey. In Kelowna Centre, where the Conservatives are ahead, there is a Green candidate there too, 1,000 votes. But there is also that Michael Humer, so there's 2,500 votes there for the Conservatives. So vote splits either way. It hurts everybody equally. In Juan de Fuca, Malahat, there it's a 23% for the Greens is what's making this close, though the NDP is ahead right now. And in Surrey Guildford, what do we got? Only 4%, but 781 votes for the Green Party there. So some vote splits happening. Maybe it's hard to say who is getting hurt more by it. But I'm sure there'll be lots of blame to go around in the days to come, as is usually the case.
I mean, again, I know many of our members are very keen on electoral reform, and again, I don't think you can't be very optimistic because it has failed every time. But some people, if they are bullish on this, could say, well, the Greens have a shot here. Mm-hmm. Like promise us electoral reform and we'll support you. It's just that if the NDP says, well, no, who are you going to support? The Conservatives? And, just remember why Mr. Rustad was, what triggered the Conservative rise. Mr. Rustad was kicked out of the BC Liberal Caucus for his comments on the CO2. In the atmosphere. So if the Greens are actually green, they can't do that. We'll see.
Yeah.
See, the sky is still holding. Yes, looks good.
Yeah, the 2 extra seats are a little bit of cushion for the NDP, but they're not called yet. Jeremy Valeriote looks like he probably will win. He's 500 votes up, but if he doesn't, it's the Conservatives who win it. And in Saanich North and the Islands, the NDP is second. So if that doesn't end up sticking with the Greens, the NDP might end up getting that riding anyway. So it might not matter. But what happens in West Vancouver Sea to Sky could be pretty important. This is an interesting riding, actually, just to take a minute with it. Yep. So West Vancouver, around here, this is part of it's like the city, right? It's more of an urban area. But then it stretches up all the way up to Whistler and the town of Squamish. So it's got these different kind of profiles because this is a big riding, as you can see, that would include lots of like urban dwellers who live in Vancouver, people in Squamish who might be a bit of a bedroom community, the people who live in Whistler who obviously have a very different kind of lifestyle and probably work in the tourism industry. So it's an interesting riding. And then even the ones where the Greens have in Saanich North and the Islands, that too, right? Saanich is sort of a suburb of Victoria. Then you have these islands here that are in the Strait of the Georgia Strait. Is it the Georgia Strait there? Yeah. What is it?
I'm not the one to ask that.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. It's the Georgia Strait.
Please
up
correct
here.
us if we're wrong.
Yeah. I'm getting my bodies of water mixed up.
Yeah, Strait of Georgia. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Oof.
Thank you.
I didn't know.
No. Just really curious about Nathan Cullen. Because he is, like, I mean, for people like us who followed the federal politics so much, like, he was a big figure within the federal Liberal NDP.
Yeah.
Came third in the leadership race in 2012 that selected Tom Mulcair. Was a pretty big get for the BC NDP when he made the move over to provincial politics. So for him to go down would be huge. Right now, according to this breakdown, the CBC has, Pam Alexis has been defeated in Abbotsford Mission. The Agriculture Minister, Dan Coulter, Minister of State for Infrastructure and Transit in Chilliwack North, would have been tough for them there. But a couple other ministers are in trouble as well, though most of the cabinet has been reelected. But, you know, Nathan Cullen, not one of them.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at BC elections. So, sticking for Mr. Cullen, 4 of 5 advance votes have been counted now. I'm surprised they haven't called this because this is 1,000 votes. The advance voting did not help Mr. Cullen. Unless those last boxes really tilt towards the NDP, this would be a pickup for the Conservatives. Wow.
Yeah. Looking at Kelowna Centre, that was the one that we were watching for a while. Still only a small gap for Christina Lowen. It's up less than 200 votes over the NDP, so that one by no means is decided. Vernon Lumby, another one. The NDP's a bit further ahead. They're ahead by about 600 votes, which could be a bit safer. But yeah, we're starting to get to the point where not that many ridings are left to be called, but almost all, not almost all, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of the Surrey ridings are still too close to be called. So that is going to be really what we're going to be watching for the rest of the evening. Some of the commenters are saying that CTV called that Cullen has lost. So
yeah, makes sense. With the numbers I just saw, it makes sense. Yeah. CBC hasn't done it, but it's out of reach.
But it probably is. But again, like, I just think that one of those ridings could be one of those where it depends a lot on where the vote is coming from.
Yeah.
That could make the biggest difference. This question about which platform? This is just the CBC election website, which has a nice appearance to it.
Yeah, it's good.
Hey, and everybody in the comments saying something about the election being rigged. Will you stop? It's stupid. Stop being stupid.
You want to rig an election so it's a tie?
Yeah, real smart there.
Yeah,
woo, real
job.
geniuses.
Yeah.
They're gonna come on, guys. Let's not be idiots. So.
It's like toddlers. There's two kind of news. There's good news for what I like, and there's fake news, like toddlers.
Come on, guys.
No!
Seriously, get real.
Something I don't like happened. So, come on.
So anyway, there's a 1-point lead for the NDP in the popular vote, 44.6 to 43.5. So that still is 45-43, right? Yeah. So no one yet had that. No one's going to have the Greens because the Greens are at 8, and they're going to get...
Wow.
Everybody had him at 9 to 12.
Wow.
But
that's within range.
Yeah, but
that's within range.
It happens every time. Whenever you have one of these parties that is a major party but isn't running a full slate of candidates, the pollsters they don't ask voters, do you know if you can vote?
Here's the thing. I remember because the pollsters will tell you that many voters do not know. I remember a pollster who was he was polling for Montreal during the municipal election, and they asked me, okay, so in what's your borough? What's your ward? And voters did not know.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing at the provincial and federal level. Many voters do not know the riding they're living in. And so So if you try to ask, you just add more confusion to the polls. So, but thing is, if they end up with 8%, we had a few polls that had them in 9, even 10. That's within range. That's for me. That doesn't bother me. It's okay.
Yeah. No, the pollsters will be fine. I will be curious to see some of the regional results, though, because we did see some difference. Some of them had, the Conservatives doing really well in the island. Doesn't seem like they did very well in the island. I will be curious to see how the Lower Mainland breaks down, because
it's blue right now.
Yeah.
But by close margins. But
but I'm curious, I'd have to go through some of these. Is the NDP winning these ridings? So they're at 64 in Vancouver Hastings. In Vancouver Renfrew, they're at 63. In Vancouver West End, they're at 63. So are they running up the numbers in these ridings? Whereas in, let's see, Delta South, 55 for the Conservatives. Langley Abbotsford, what do we got there? 55. So I'm just wondering if the NDP vote is proving to be actually pretty inefficient, because a lot of it is being concentrated in Vancouver. Vancouver Langara, just to take a look at that one again.
Close.
300 votes.
Still close.
Yep.
The NDP needed that one.
Yeah. There's a lot of those that the NDP needs.
Well,
any single one where they're up by not that much, that is where the NDP needs. They're ahead by 46 votes in Juan de Fuca. They're ahead by 30 votes in Surrey City Centre. So right now, if this is the end of the count, 30 voters in Surrey City Centre ensured that the NDP won more seats than the Conservatives. It is just kind of nuts how we can have an election like this. Again, over a big province. Like in New Brunswick, there was a 1-seat gap in 2018 between the PCs and the Liberals, but that was out of 49 seats. The odds of it, almost twice as high as in BC. And here we got 93 seats. How many people are voting? We got 2 million votes at least are about to be counted. And it's coming down to 21,000 votes between the NDP and the Conservatives, 1 seat. And in that 1 seat, 31 votes. I wonder if there's a lot of people right now who are like, geez, I should have gone out with my umbrella.
Yeah.
I should have cast that ballot. So I don't know. It just shows you that while, for a lot of people who voted across the province, that one vote might not have made the difference. But for those 31 people, not even 31 people, 16 people, right? If 16 people, the 16 people who voted for the NDP, any 16 people in Surrey City Centre had voted for the Conservatives instead, the Conservatives would win the most seats. It's just kind of nuts how tiny it is.
It's also remarkable because I'm looking at the popular vote right now. When both parties had about 300,000 votes, they were at 45-43. And now they're getting closer to 900,000 votes apiece, and they're still at 45-43. So, remarkably stable. I guess that's what you get when you have a fast count. And although I have to say now it's... it's 9:45 in BC right now. It's 12:45 here in the east. We're getting close to 3 hours.
2 hours.
When did we start?
11.
Yeah, 2 hours. Sorry, I can't count.
You're already
getting close to
get
2
out.
hours. Yeah, at that point, not even half the votes were counted in La Salle-Verdun.
Oh
but
God, yeah.
So I think when Surrey's done counting, we'll go to bed.
Yeah.
Because
elections, BC did say that 98% of the votes should be counted on election night. I don't know what that extra 2% is. I don't know if it's special ballots or those kinds of things. So I don't know how close we're going to get, actually. So just to put it in my head, we got 2,003 polls reported out of 2,239. So we'll see if there are still more that are coming in. But
where do you see that? Is it down CBC? I don't see it.
Yeah, it's just at the very top. Okay, so we did get 4 more polls being reported. So there are more votes coming in.
Okay, I see it, yeah.
As we're chatting.
200, okay, I see it, yeah. Nice. So NDP winning by 1 seat, winning the popular vote. Again, if they pull that off,
Yeah.
a win is a win. You may be disappointed, but I mean, what? You will be disappointed that you will not get all the power and an outright majority. Then you'll have to do some politicking. That's okay.
For 3 of the last 7 years, this is the kind of legislature they had to deal with, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So David Eby might not have done it before, but the NDP has, so they can do it. But yeah, like everybody's got to be around. No one can leave Victoria for very long because if they miss a vote, if they can't catch a bus, government could fall. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on if it holds this way. So, all right. So
the Surrey City Center. Let me look at that. It's now a comfortable 34 vote
34
advantage.
Votes.
Yeah, it used to be 5. It used to be 15. Okay, that's so close.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what does it say in terms of how many? Does it still say there's 2?
It's 18 of 20.
18 of 20.
They're counting that $18 or that $19 maybe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, there's going to have to be some recounts, I think, because there's 2 right now. Those 2 seats are being decided by less than 50 votes. And there's at least 2 other ridings where the margin is between 120 and 106 votes. I don't know what the legal threshold is for a recount, but I imagine that I think you can request some if you have if the amount is a certain amount. So that'll be something to see. Yeah, Kyle
we're not going to bed. We can't go to bed.
Well, we're gonna have to wait a little bit to see what happens. Maybe we'll find some news from someone else. But
no, we can't. We can't. We have to stay up.
Kyle's saying that. Because there's not 2 being completed in anyone, so they might be just the special ballots, which is probably not a huge amount of votes, so maybe it doesn't matter. But yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
I took some caffeine. I told you earlier tonight, I planned my day to be in Pacific time. I changed my meal time. I changed my nap time. Mm-hmm. So I feel okay. It's just that it's tomorrow that's going to be a bit tougher. But that's okay. That's part of the gig. And we have over 2,000 people here. Thank you very much for being here, guys. Keep the comments clean, but thank you for being here. We appreciate that. If you enjoy our work, again, we each have a Substack where we write about politics, the writ.ca and 338canada.ca, mm-hmm. and the podcast that we do every week called The Numbers. Go sign up. It's good stuff. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We have fun and we talk about the numbers, and we're very low on policy, and I love this. Yeah. So this is not my beat.
Sometimes
and I don't
we get
pretend.
Some questions from our members. They're like, "What do you explain this?" And I'm always
Bill
thinking
270. I don't. It's not that I don't care. It's not that it's not important. It's not my beat. I stay in my lane. I don't pretend to be an expert. I don't pretend to be Chantal Hébert and knowing everything about what's going on the hill.
So I see a Maple was saying that I've been nursing this glass of apple juice. It's not apple juice. I went out and got a BC cider. This is Bumper Crop BC Craft Cider. It is 7%, which is
How would you rate it? Is it good? 7
out of 10.
Okay, that's good.
It's a little bit sweeter than I would normally like. I usually like it to be a bit more, I don't know, a little bit more,
tangy?
I don't know how to describe
tangy?
it. Well, yeah, if you ever have a cider from like France or Ireland, like they tend to be less sweet. They taste a little bit more like beer, I guess. There's probably not yeast in it, but it has a little bit of a yeastiness to it.
Right.
So yeah, anyway, I wanted to go find. There was one bottle of wine at my LCBO from British Columbia, but it was a bit pricey, and I figured that would be just a Bumper Crop. There you go. Not sponsored. I went out and just paid my own good money for this. So
that's right.
So yeah. All right. So since we were chatting, 2 more polls. Now we're starting to get into the slow.
Yeah, it's gonna get.
Now it's starting to get into the slow. So we'll see what's going to happen. So Surrey Centre, I'm going to write them down so that we can see if there is actually going to be any change. So Surrey Centre, or City Centre, we're now at a 33 vote margin. And Juan de Fuca, we're at 43. Kelowna Centre, we're at 122. Surrey Guildford, 102. And then the rest are all 200 votes or more. So we'll see if this is going to change. Because if this doesn't change, then I don't think any of the seats are going to change, which means we're going to be stuck at 46, 45, and 2.
Well, the maximum chaos scenario was 46, 46, 1. This is second best. This is second, well, best. You know what I mean. Mm-hmm. This is, in the chaos ranking. This is it. No comfortable lead ever.
No.
And the two rookies for the Greens holding the balance of power for now. Wait and see.
Apparently, I'm activating someone's Siri by saying Surrey. So that's very funny. Siri, sign up for the numbers. Go to the numberspod.ca and just sign up. Just input the credit card. It'll be fine.
There you go.
All right, so we'll see if this is it for. Well, I just saw that we're now up to 2018, and Surrey Centre is now 38 vote lead. So okay, there are still some ballots being counted in these ridings. So we'll see what's going to happen. Here, let's just do a little view of kind of how things have been happening throughout region by region. So, Lower Mainland, NDP swept almost all of Vancouver. The only one right now that is sticking with the Conservatives is Vancouver-Kilchena, which was Kevin Falcon's riding. All the other NDP ridings, or all the other Vancouver ridings, are sticking with the NDP, including Vancouver-Yaletown, which was seen as a riding that the Conservatives could have won. It was Steve Sullivan's, or I think that's actually the hockey player. But anyway, there was a Mayor Sullivan, his old riding. The Conservatives, Melissa DiGenova, came up short there, or at least is currently coming up short. The NDP swept Burnaby. They swept the Coquitlam area, Port Coquitlam, Port Moody, that area. But the Conservatives won most of the seats in Richmond, one of two in Delta, and most of Surrey. And I think that is really what is making the difference tonight. Any surprises for you in the Lower Mainland?
Well, 7 of 10 in Surrey so far, and it could be more because City Centre and Fleetwood are still very much in play. Fleetwood, there's a little more cushion here. There's more daylight between the two, but still. Vancouver, I had 2 seats in Vancouver for the Conservatives, and one of them was toss-up. It's Langara. Vancouver-Langara, I see there's 1.9% between the two, so it's not over. I guess, well, Nathan Cullen losing in the north, there's a surprise.
Yeah.
And in the Rockies, in the interior, Vernon Lumby still leaning towards the NDP. That's a surprise.
Yeah.
I see 400
it's a decent
votes
amount now. It's
almost.
400 votes.
Yep. So that's a surprise. And that's a big spoiler with an independent. So there will be talk of this in the aftermath.
Yeah. I mean, they still got 42% of the vote, which isn't too bad.
Yeah. No, it's a good score.
But yeah, that result in Buckley Valley Stikeen. What are we at now? Well, it's still about 1,000 votes that Nathan Cullen is losing by. And then on Vancouver Island, it was just the 2 northernmost ridings that the Conservatives were able to at least move ahead in. Their gap in North Island is nearly 1,000, so that's probably going to hold. And their gap in Courtney Comox that's only 200 votes, so we'll see what happens there. But the NDP swept Victoria. The Greens won Saanich North and the Islands. And the NDP actually swept the Nanaimo area, which was a bit of a surprise. I thought that's where the Conservatives might have had a chance as well to win. So with a 1-seat gap, I think we can all find the one surprise that kind of makes the difference, right? So you got Vernon Lumby, that's probably one. Richmond Steveston, that's going to be one that's going to be pretty important too. That the NDP was able to win that. And that, you look at the Surreys,
Many of them are close, huh?
they're really close, but I mean, was Surrey Newton the one that was the safest NDP one rather than City Centre or Surrey North? Wouldn't have thought so. But it's going to end up coming down to a few hundred votes in Surrey, I think.
A few dozen, maybe.
Yeah, a few dozen.
Wow. Already getting some unhappy mail. How do you dare miss my writing?
Oh, who told you that?
Oh, yeah.
We want names.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's a story I've told before, but in the 2019 Alberta election, so Jason Kenney and the UCP winning, I had a projection that was amazingly good. It was really good. Obvious. I don't want to take all the credit. The polls were okay. I followed Janet Brown. I think I had 61 seats for the UCP and I won 63.
Yeah.
But I had for like 3 years people emailing me like, but you missed my writing. You are worthless. I go like, well, I had 82 of 87, so that's pretty good. Thing is, the one I think we will point to, one of the mistakes, was Sonia Furstenau. Her seat. Before we had local data in that seat, I had it with NDP win, but we had a writing poll, and it was a clear win for the Greens, and it was I think it was right after the debate, so that poll skewed the results. I mean, don't forget, people, I do not put, it's not my feelings, it's not my opinions in there. I follow the numbers. Mm-hmm. So, and we will have, of course, a breakdown of the writing polls. I think most of them will be pretty good. Yeah. But most of them, that means that one or two will be wrong. And the one in Victoria Beacon Hill was wrong because it was not close. The NDP won that with the margin. It was pretty big, right? Beacon Hill. I see 47 for the NDP, just under 34 for Miss Furstenau. Yeah. So that's not close.
I just had a question about how, and it just shows you, like, you look at the map is mostly blue. But that's because a lot of the biggest ridings are the ones in the interior where the populations are small and they cover lots of ground. And so the map looks like it's a lot of blue. But if you talk about where people actually live, you look at the Vancouver area, that's where you see all the orange and in Vancouver Island. So it's just a question of some of these ridings. You look at the ridings in Vancouver, they're tiny ridings, but they have huge population. Mm-hmm. And then you look at a riding like the ones in the north, which have lower populations because they usually need to have at least some representation for different parts of the province, places that can't be lumped in. You can't have a riding that is all of northern northern British Columbia. So that's how that kind of happens, where there is a little bit of imbalance between the population between the ridings, usually to the benefit of rural ridings. So they usually get a little bit more representation. But, when you're looking at the popular vote, if you're a PR advocate, proportional representation, you're probably looking at 2 seats for the Greens and thinking that's really unfair. But if you're looking at the popular vote, 44.6% for the NDP to 43.5% for the Conservatives, and a 1-seat difference, it's not really anything unfair with those kinds of results.
Nope. With PR, the Greens would have 7 seats? Yeah. Right? It would be a minority. The Greens would hold the balance of power, and this looks like that's what we're going to get. So. This is a separate debate. I always say it tongue-in-cheek because I know a lot of people that care about electoral reform really care a lot about that. And a result like this would... if one party... If the count changes, let's say the Conservatives do get to 47 seats, well, okay, they got the majority, but they didn't get a plurality of the vote. Yeah, well, that's how our system works. So... Sometimes it's better for your party. Sometimes it's bad for your party. That's it. Yeah. Brian Gallant in New Brunswick won the popular vote by 6 points in 2018, and he lost the election. So it's rare, but it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So We're still waiting to see where things are. So there's still 209 polls to be counted or reported. So we'll see if that is going to start creeping up at all. Because we do get to the point where there might be some mail ballots or special ballots to be counted, and we might not be talking about actually very many votes. Because with the special ballots, especially, those are often, people who can't go out to vote, or it's sometimes could be a handful of ballots in some cases. So I'm just looking to see if there's any kind of news anywhere about what's happening with the results, but not seeing anything right now. So what are we waiting for? It does seem to be like it's 2 polls in almost every riding. You look at the ones that we're keeping an eye on, 17 of 19 in Surrey Guildford. In Surrey City Centre, we're at 18 of 20. And as you said, it is kind of being counted in a progressive way. It's like, it's not that we're going to get to one whole poll counted. They're uploading the numbers as it comes in, so it's hard to see exactly what we're waiting for. Do you see anything from the Elections BC website that's a bit more helpful?
No. I mean, it's just tabulators, right? So there's no. I mean, it would be nice to have a little map. You click on the map to see that where the poll is from, but we'll get that in time. We won't get that on the same night. So it's again, we started the count 2 hours ago. It's pretty good. We're at are we at 2 million votes? Just under 2 million votes. So 1.8 million. That's pretty good in 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's just that you have to remember, Éric and I live in the east, and so it's late now. But it's okay.
It is very late.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see how much longer we're gonna stick to.
The federal update tomorrow will be very quick. I won't go into details because that's not the focus. But for those who follow my Substack tomorrow, I'll have a federal update, but it's going to be quite short because
there wasn't very much over the last little while.
Campaign research, or was that last week? I don't remember. I didn't focus on the federal at all. So, yeah. So it's okay. I mean, all the pollsters did BC, or almost all the pollsters.
Yeah, we actually got like 10 different pollsters to put out something. And how many pollsters have we had active in New Brunswick? 2. And how many have we had in Saskatchewan? We've had 3.
At least 3, because we know that Forum. Well, thing is, we know Forum is on the field in New Brunswick. Will they publish? Probably at 11:59 p.m. Local time, Main Street, and we had the one narrative research of the cities. So that's 3. Yeah. Last time around in New Brunswick, Léger was there, but it looks like they didn't have a sponsor, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
No, we'll see.
All right. I see a lot of people are expressing their feelings about their very raw feelings about things in the comments. So everybody could maybe just calm down a little bit.
That's all right.
You're not going to win any. You know what? The election's over. You don't need to try to win the election tonight. It's already done.
That's right.
All right. Yeah. It will be interesting to see once it's over. Which of the seats are the biggest surprises based on the model, right?
Yeah.
Because that is often really indicative of something happening. The biggest case is the federal election, the last federal election, that both of us who do these projections riding by riding, the ones where we had the biggest errors were the ones with the larger Chinese Canadian populations. And there's all the story about foreign interference. Whether that was actually the cause or not, it's hard to know. But when you see that kind of thing happening, then you know that something specific was happening with a particular community in terms of a reaction to a party or otherwise, right? So if we do see that some of the biggest surprises are... One of the biggest surprises, I think, will be Buckley Valley Stikine.
Oh, no kidding.
That'll kind of tell us something. And some of the other ones are going to be, I think, because of vote splits, right? Which are going to be a bit easier to explain.
Well, the thing is, when a seat is labeled as safe, it's because of past results and regional results. And there was nothing in Baltic Valley Stikine that showed that Mr. Cullen would lose. I mean, people maybe on the ground would say, well, we knew it all along. Yeah, but nothing came publicly, at least in the news media or in the polls, that showed that this would happen. It's also a smaller population, right? So you have to you don't have to convince 10,000 people. You have to convince a few thousands, and you can flip it. Yeah, I mean, this is an example. I mean, in the federal election, I said this on a podcast, in federal election, Richmond Center was labeled conservative safe. Yeah. Nobody, I mean, even the Liberals did not expect to win it, and they did. And so, when you have, in this case, with the provincial, you have 93 ridings, yeah, one or two of those will flip. And then the question will become why. So, I don't know. There were no polls in that riding, so there was no reason. I mean, if you had a model that said, oh yeah, Baltic Valley Stikine is going to flip to the Conservatives, I would have said, okay, that's interesting. Based on what? Because I need to see data. We didn't have any data, so.
Yeah. So let's kind of reset a little bit about where things are. We got 46 seats right now where the NDP is leading or elected. They're at 44.6% of the vote. So for the NDP, based on the new map, right? I think they would have won 61 seats, right?
Yeah.
So they've dropped 15 seats.
That's right.
They could have afforded to lose 14 seats and retain a majority government. So anyway, they've dropped 3 points in the popular vote. Still better than the last few elections.
Yeah.
The Conservatives are at 45 seats, or at 43.5% of the vote. If we compare that to how the Liberals did in the last election, the Liberals had 34% of the vote, so we're seeing a gain of nearly 10 points. You could add the 2% the Conservatives had to the Liberal tally, so it bumps it up a little bit. And I think that they would have won 31 seats. The combined Liberal-Conservative vote would have won them 31 seats, so they've made a gain of 14. They needed 2 more, at least, right now, to win a majority. For the Greens, they had 15% of the vote last time. They're now down to 8.3, so that is almost half of their vote. They are going to win, or they're leading 2 seats. They won 2 seats last time. One of the seats is different, and that'll be really impactful because it means their leader is not going to win an election and be in the legislature. None of the independents got close.
Yeah, nobody got
Some
close.
of them might have played a spoiler role. The independent and unaffiliated total vote was about 3.5 percentage points.
Okay.
Which again, a lot of the polls had somewhere around 3 to 5% for other parties, right? So I think that's where they're going to end up. So that seems to be where we are right now. And we're waiting for these last few polls to come in because these 2 seats, Wanda-Fuka Malahat and Surrey City Centre, the margin, the NDP's margin is 40 votes or less. If both of those flip over to the Conservatives, they're at 47 and a majority. If the Conservatives hold, the NDP holds both of them, they can probably count on the Greens to make sure that their government doesn't fall in the legislature.
Surrey Guildford, only 100 votes.
Yeah.
Also, right now the Conservatives are leading. So we're getting close to the end here, but man, so Juan de Fuca and Surrey City Centre, together, fewer than 80 votes. That's the NDP win if it holds. Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna know the outright winner tonight, Éric.
No, I don't think so. And some of these might be recounted.
Well, that's yeah.
That usually doesn't flip the results.
It's rare.
It's very rare, but we have seen it before. Yeah, you only need one of these to flip, and you got 46 Conservative, 45 NDP, right? So it is going to be hard to know for certain, especially if it is going to take a little bit of a little bit of time, I think, for these last ballots to be counted. And in some cases, we're talking about a few dozen votes that can make the difference, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if we'll have a complete count even by the morning. I think these last ballots are supposed to take a little bit longer, right?
Yeah, but thing is, it's only 10 p.m. in BC. They're just cracking open a Red Bull right now, and they go, yeah, it's just we have to put a limit on how late we go. But thing is, it's gone to a crawl right now, right?
Yeah.
The count was really fast, and now it's so that's why I'm saying. But yeah. Oh well.
All right. So,
if you have any questions, people.
Yeah,
questions
if you have,
about,
let us
shoot
know
them
if you have
over.
any questions. We can kill a little time and see if we get any further clarity. I think we'll
man.
probably, at the very least, maybe we'll go to 1:30, and then we could maybe call it a night at that point. Unless you're already ready for bed, Philippe. Do you need to get?
No. I'm not the one. I said in Toronto, St. Paul's, I was the one that says, okay, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
We were on the air for 6 hours?
that was really long. Yeah,
And I said, I can't do it anymore. Went to bed, and of course, like an idiot in bed, I checked my phone, and the Conservatives took the lead. I was like, okay, well, that's all right. I didn't have it in me, but
all right. So here's a good question: if Rustad comes up short, do you think he resigns as leader? So let's say this is the results.
yeah.
I think that he does not resign. By no stretch of the imagination does he resign tonight.
Oh, no, why would he? He took his party from 0 to 45 seats. The question will be instead, I think. I mean, he will stay, but you remember, I mean, maybe it's not a perfect analogy, but I remember in the 2019 election, the leader of the Conservative, said he would stay. Remind me, it's Saskatchewan guy. What's his name?
Sorry, what? Oh, Andrew Scheer.
2019.
Andrew
Andrew
Scheer.
Scheer. Thank you. I'm blanking.
I was reading something and
It's all right.
I lost
But
track
Andrew
of his
Scheer
name.
said he would stay.
He wanted to stay.
He wanted to stay. It's the caucus booted him just before Christmas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a Christmas gift for
I think
Andrew
Mr.
Scheer.
Rustad will stay. It's just as we get, let's say this is the result. As we get closer to the next election, what do the polls say? How does he handle a caucus full of rookies? And you can be sure that in the next election, I was about to say 2028, but it may be earlier than that, the Conservative expectations will be way higher than they were tonight. And also, if the NDP does win and takes this to full length, that's a decade of NDP in power. Usually after that time, it's over, right? For any party of any color.
You do have to wonder if those within the Conservative Party who now see themselves as the next government, whether it's, as you said, after the next election or not, think that, need to have a leader that we would have chosen the first time, right? John Rustad,
Won by acclamation, right?
well, he became the leader because he left the BC Liberal caucus at the time and joined the Conservatives, and they were like, hey, do you want this job? Why don't you take it? But would they have chosen him if they knew they were going to be this close to power? You would imagine there would be a lot of Conservatives in BC who think like, you know what, I should be the leader. I actually have more charisma and all this kind of stuff. And also, this is a party that buried the other party, and that BCU is not entirely dead. When you look at what's happened with the UCP in Alberta, where that was, again, the merger of two parties, I think there could be leadership drama for the BC Conservatives for quite some time. I don't think there will be any tonight.
No.
I would add, to be honest, if the next election is in 2027, 2028, I would be surprised if John Rustad was still the leader of the Conservatives.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thing is, okay, you may have a point. I'll push back on this to maybe play devil's advocate. Maybe we are taking away all the credit. I mean, he must deserve some credit for taking this party from 2% to 44%. I mean, I know there's no hidden intention, no hidden fact that they rode the coattails of the federal conservatives, but that's part of the game. I mean, Éric Duhem is trying to do that in Quebec. It's not working. He's got decent numbers, but he's nowhere close to where the federal conservatives poll. So he's going to be tested, but his caucus will expect a lot from him. So, and again, we say this, he could still be premier in a few weeks, depending on how these dozens of votes where they fall. Oh,
there was a question we had about like what's going to happen with the Liberals or BC United. I mean, the party still exists.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with it. You think you do think that there must be some people who are pretty angry with Kevin Falcon for taking this party, which has governed British Columbia for a long part of its history, has been around since the beginning.
Yeah.
That maybe there might be some people who want to at least present that centrist option, bring it back to being the BC Liberal Party. I don't think the party's dead yet, but there's a history of this. Social Credit in 1991 was the incumbent government. It got third place in that election. The Liberals finished second. The NDP won that election. By the next election, it was done. It was getting point something percent of the vote. And same thing could easily happen to BC United, that they didn't run any candidates this time. They have to run candidates in the next election or they will be deregistered.
Oh, is that okay? That's okay.
You can't have 2 elections in a row where you don't run candidates. So we'll find out. They might end up disappearing because they might have to end up disappearing.
But also, if the Conservatives do win tonight, I mean, that's mission accomplished. That's why the BC Monsieur Falcon decided to do this, if to beat the NDP. Now the question is if it fails. But I'm sorry, but with this result, the Conservatives have not failed. Even if they come up short by 1 or 2 seats, it's not a failure. You have a new movement, you have a new label, you have a new party, you have a new caucus. For me, this is not a bad night for the Conservatives, even if they come up short. And they were there.
Not at all.
So and
is...
Mr. Falcon says if we had stayed in the race, I mean, the last polls with the BC United still had them at what, 9 to 12, I think, percent. Take that 9 to 12%. Let's say 2/3 of them from the Conservatives tonight. That's an easy NDP win. NDP win tonight. So, Mr. Falcon, many people will be angry at him, but others will say, well, we almost beat the NDP, and that was the goal all along.
Yeah. We'll see. The Conservatives would need to flip at least 2 seats, I think, because even if they are only up by 1, I think the Greens probably ensure that David Eby remains as premier, unless he resigns. But I don't think that's going to happen tonight, because I think there's too many close ridings for anybody to make any sort of very important decision like that, right? So we'll have to wait and see. They do have, the CBC now has Rob Botterill in Sandwich North and the Islands as elected, so the Greens at least have that one. In West Vancouver, Sea to Sky, Jeremy Valeriot is up by a decent amount, so he's probably going to be okay. That was always going to be a three-way race, and it was. The NDP had 26% of the vote, only 12 points back of Jeremy Valeriot and the Greens as the winning party there. I wonder how many of these we're going to find that were real three-way races, right? Cowichan Valley was one where the Greens also got over 20%. No, they just came just short of 20%.
The lead in Surrey City Centre went from 41 votes to 42 votes. So they really are publishing results as the box is getting counted.
Yeah,
I don't think I had ever seen that in Canada, at least.
No, it's a bit more unusual, but I guess it's the tabulators and how they work. Again, I'm just going to try and see if we see any news on social media about what's actually happening.
Man,
Yeah.
I have to stop reading the comments. Jesus Christ.
I'm trying to keep my eye on them.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people.
less and less interesting.
Yeah. You guys are gotta relax and chill out. We're just trying to have fun, people. Come on.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know. What do you want to do here?
Juan de Fuca, 29 votes.
29 votes. Yeah.
Man, 29 votes. Out of how many? How many votes are there? Juan de Fuca. It is.
God, it's like 22. It's like 2,200,000 votes.
Wow.
Oh, Dingo, you missed. You missed. I already used the calculator. My old calculator. This baby is still going strong because it's got a little, very, somehow still functioning solar battery. When this calculator was designed in 1989 or whenever it was, the solar battery was pretty cutting edge. This calculator is so old I don't remember when I got it. It's just always existed. It's
Has
just
to
something
be older
I've
than
always
you,
had.
right? Yeah, maybe it's older than you.
I looked it up. It's like it's absolutely at least from the early 90s.
Huh.
I don't think it's older than me. Come on.
Well, he's from 80s. I don't know. We had calculators.
It's got
in the
more of a
80s.
90s feel. I don't think it's got an 80s feel. Anyway,
It's got that cigarette color.
Well, it was probably white originally.
Yep.
I'd be very sad if it went kaput. I'd have to go buy another one. It was made in Thailand. There you go. When was the last time I saw a calculator made in Thailand? Anyway.
Right. Well, if they stop counting the votes, we'll stop commenting on it. Right. That's the thing. So
That's the threat. That's the threat. that we're gonna
26 votes in Juan de Fuca. It was 29. Oh, careful. Momentum. 43 votes in Surrey City Centre. It goes up. The NDP
make.
is.
But it used to be 33.
That's right. So the NDP momentum. There you go.
Yeah.
And Surrey Guildford is still just 100 votes. I mean, you're looking at the NDP, and I'm sure they're in their headquarters tonight and said, "What the hell did we do in Surrey?" Like, do you remember? Like, do you realize if they had 100 more votes in Surrey Guildford, they win a majority? Yeah, okay, the shortest of majorities, but they're looking at this right now. Okay, we had a pretty good map in this new electoral map, and we blew Surrey. And, we're in a position here where we're just dozens of votes away from losing.
Is it too? Caleb asks, is it too early to speculate on a future NDP leader?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Evie's only been there for 2 years.
Yeah, and if he pulls off a win by
even if
one,
it's a narrow one, yeah. Well, also he can't really step down, right? They can't afford to lose. They can't afford to lose a single MLA.
Nope.
Right. So yeah, like I mean, there are going
It's
to
too
be.
early. Yeah, it's too early.
And I'm not sure if he gets blamed for this, right?
There's plenty of blame to go around, but if your vote goes, you win a massive majority with 48%. You go into the next election 4 years later, your vote goes from 48 to 45. You're looking pretty. So, if your opponent is united, not to make a pun here, but if your opponent is united, there's not much you can do here. I mean, Rachel Notley in Alberta was the same case. She had more votes in raw votes in the 2019 election in Alberta, but she faced a united opponent instead of the divided opponent. She had no chance. So, yeah, he will get. I mean, the organization, I'm sure they will ask people, like, what the hell happened in Surrey? The big surprises. I mean, look at, so to go back to Baltley Stikeen, okay, this is something that I don't understand. Maybe Mr. Cullen will have a post-mortem. I did not see any modeling that had this going to the Conservatives. So, I mean, it was a safe seat in my model. What happened? Locally, they will know. But aside from that, and I say locally, that's far from all the media, the big media organizations, right?
Yeah, and there's no splits there either, right? Because Sharon Hartwell of the Conservatives got 53% of the vote, right? So yeah, that would definitely be one of the big surprises. I wonder if it's related to resource policies, that kind of thing. But you look at the entire North is all conservative. The only NDP seat in the North is the North Coast Haida Gwaii, which is going to be a bit of a different riding than the rest of it. And the NDP won that one pretty handily. But apart from that, their seats are entirely in the Lower Mainland, with the one exception, I guess, the Powell River Sunshine Coast, Southern Vancouver Island, and then in the Kootenays. That's it, right? The Conservatives were able to win Northern BC, most of the Southern Interior, most of the Okanagan. The only one they didn't win is the Vernon Lumbee. And then you look at the Lower Mainland, they couldn't break into Vancouver. The one is Vancouver-Kilchena. But apart from that, they had trouble breaking into Vancouver. And the Liberals used to be able to win a few ridings in Vancouver, right? And that's what would get them into the high 40s. The Liberals had 49 seats in 2013, 49 in 2009. So that would be the challenge, I think, for the next for the Conservative Party and for John Rustad or whoever might succeed him one day. How does this party break into Vancouver? Because it's hard. Like, you look at the map. Okay, maybe they could have won Vernon Lumbee. What else? I mean, maybe an extra Surrey or two, but they'd be better off if they could win 3 or 4 seats in Vancouver, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, but this urban and rural cleavage we see throughout the country. I mean, you could also point to Vancouver Island. They won barely 2 seats in the north, I mean, the Conservatives will have their coalition ready for next election. This is what I'm looking at right now. I mean, suburbs, interior, north, then a decade of NDP in power. They will have to choose wisely. They're if they choose their leader, but also who gets part of that caucus, who gets part of that future cabinet. Because again, many rookies will be tested. And perhaps we will find out that some of those rookies will learn on the job and be very good. Some of them will probably be surprised, caught like a deer in headlights. But,
well, that's it. I mean, you look at this party, they were still having to compete with BC United 2 months ago.
Yeah, in August.
Yeah. They were able to take some of their candidates, some of their MLAs. They probably got some of their organizers, some of their volunteers. They had already gained a lot of them, but the party didn't have the BC United's money because BC United, there's public subsidy that comes from
that's right,
the government in British Columbia, where the amount of money you get is based on the amount of votes you get. The Conservatives had so few votes in the last election, they weren't getting a lot of money from the public subsidy, but the BCU still was. But because they didn't merge, they're still 2 separate entities.
Yeah.
BCU wasn't able to give the Conservatives their money. Now the Conservatives will be getting almost identical funding to the BC NDP. So that means they're going to be able to hire full-time staffers. They're going to get all the resources of 45 MLAs who will have their own staffers and budgets from the legislature. In 3 or 4 years, whenever the next election is, the BC Conservative Party is going to be a fully fledged, fully funded, fully staffed party, which I don't think it was in this campaign.
No.
And they still only came 1 seat short.
80 votes.
Yeah.
That's right. 80 votes right now.
Yeah. And we knew that there was problems for David Eby, right? Because for the last year, they were leading in the polls, with the exception of, the last few weeks.
Yeah.
But the government was not getting high marks on handling of the economy, handling of the healthcare, handling of public safety, of the the opioid epidemic. So there was this vulnerability there that you could see in the polling for David Eby and the New Democrats. But the advantage they had was that the alternative was so much more unpopular. Kevin Falcon's numbers were just horrid. It wasn't just that people didn't know who the party was; they didn't like him.
Yeah.
And it just changed as that right-wing vote coalesced behind the Conservatives. Those vulnerabilities that David Eby and the NDP had, we're seeing them tonight, that they almost lost this. That if the Conservative Party was a little bit better organized, had vetted a few more of their candidates, they lost a lot of time talking about their candidates over the campaign.
Absolutely.
Do they win 47 seats? I think they probably could.
All right, the count has not moved in a while. I think we should call it a night. 1:30. So the Conservatives are 79 votes away from victory, but it looks like it has come down to a crawl. The NDP is 102 votes in Surrey Guildford. This is the closest seat right now that they're trailing in from winning a majority. So I'll tabulate all the results in the morning if they're ready. But I think we should call it a night now. So
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to do that because
it's really too bad because it's really close, but this is going to take forever. And
I don't even not sure if it's going to get finished.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah.
If they have some mail ballots and things like that, they still need to count. But it is extremely very close. There might be some judicial recounts, so who knows if the result ends up being different. But it doesn't probably matter all that much because unless 2 seats flip to the Conservatives, and even then, I'm not sure how they make that work. But it does look like David Eby will get at least the chance to be continuous premier for the foreseeable future. We'll see if he can manage support in the legislature. It was super close. We knew it was going to be pretty close. Got really, really tight, and there's only a few more seats. This election is not actually over.
No, it's not over.
But thanks for everybody who followed us throughout the night. Take a look at the writ.ca, 338canada.com and .ca. We're going to both do our own kind of analysis of what the results were. We're going to talk about it on the podcast this coming week. So go to the numberspod.ca. You can sign up there. You can also find the Numbers podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, on Apple, on Spotify, Pocket Casts, all these different places. On this YouTube channel, you could subscribe to this YouTube channel. And then we'll be doing this again on Monday night for the New Brunswick election, which, again, might end up being just as close as this one. So thanks, everybody, for watching. And thank you, Philippe. And I'm going to chat. We'll be chatting again real soon.
Thank you, everybody. Have fun tonight, and merci beaucoup. Au revoir.